sorry to interrupt, but your
Okay.
audio.
Gotta turn your mic on.
Oh, I got to turn my, okay, mic is on now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Never thought about that. Okay, so we do have a public comment period now. We'll give people a couple of minutes to call in if they would like. The number you can call is 715-538-1770.
I know, I tried, Renee showed me, and it worked in, when she showed it.
I think you got to turn your pen up.
I don't even think I have it with me anymore, I gave up on it, but, no, yeah, you gotta turn your pen on, but it's still, I can get it.
You broke it.
Yeah. Just tell my county property there. I did see my other briefcase. I stopped carrying it.
Well, maybe that battery or something. Got to recharge it. Now, when are we going to have a training meeting on these computers?
Probably when everybody gets theirs.
Oh,
Everybody
man, that could be forever.
I know, I haven't got mine yet.
Well, you have to go down and
No, they told me they weren't giving me mine yet.
Oh, really? You're one of those low echelon.
I must be on the bottom.
In the end, it should make things easier for you, shouldn't it? Or-
Well, I'm gonna just send you all the stuff like.
Yeah, rather than packets.
A lot of paper. I think I might.
Got my paper bag out here.
Hopefully buy it by the time.
Like when that or something.
County business, I forgot. Not big back. I don't even know what that is. Angry bird. Of course, you're much younger person than I am, so you're
Well, I don't think so. I know Dan and I was.
Yeah.
I did a couple of them on Sunday.
Wet behind me.
Okay, I guess I've given people a couple minutes to call in. We'll close the public comment period then. Our next item then is discussion, action, open bids for demolition of the old high school and award. So, Paul has given me 4 bids here. Now, this one has a check attached to it. Were they supposed to? They all better?
That's a bit on the
Okay. The first one I have here, it says, "To whom it may concern, Post D Excavating LLC has been in business since 2012. The owner of the business is Doug Sokup, who has been excavating business over 20 years."
You just need to read the numbers.
Yep, okay, that's, okay. So our first bid,
And who it is.
okay, it was this, let's see. So Post D Excavating LLC from Arcadia. And their bid is $83,180. Do I have to read any of the descriptions or not for right now?
I'll work on the qualification.
Okay, so that first bid is $83,180.
What was the name of the?
That was Post D Excavating LLC.
That's for post-divorce.
Okay, well, that now it makes sense.
Okay, we good with that one then?
Now it makes sense.
Okay, our second bid is from Haas Incorporated proposal. They're from Thorpe, Wisconsin. And their bid is $84,649. Let me write these down. So 83,
84,649, you said?
84,649.
Then HAAS.
H-double-A-S. 84.
Where were they from again?
They're from Thorpe.
Oh,
And this other one was 83,180. Okay. Our third bid is from Turf Pro, Turfpro from, and they're from Green Bay. And their bid is, where do I see it here? Okay, their bid, yep, the service compliance with provisions F is $108,500.
I think that's the ones that tore down the rest of it.
That was they tore down the other part of the high school? Okay, and our final bid is from Lynn Company, Linnco Incorporated. They are from Sartell, Minnesota. And their bid is $104,000 even.
where was that in Minnesota, Chuck?
Sartell, S-A-R-T-E-L-L. And as this, okay, so those would be the four bids that we have. Okay?
Are they basically the same?
Yeah, so kind of walk you through what we did. We put out an RFB that was published not only on your website, but we put it out on iSquareFoot. We had quite a bit of interest, even from other contractors that are throughout the state and then into Minnesota. I was expecting that we would probably see 6 bids. A couple of them must have declined to put numbers on. So what I would propose is that if the committee here would take action, typically what we would do is we would have a bid opening, and then we would take about a week's amount of time to do a qualification and then come back with a recommendation, because we want to make sure that everything is in order. If you wanted to take action today to award the low bidder based on a qualification process that we would go through, that could be an action that you do as well. And then we would go back and qualify to make sure that they have everything included in their bid, that there are no exclusions, so they truly are apples for apples. That would be the only thing that would disqualify a contractor, to see if they have something excluded out of the scope. So I haven't been able to review the bids, but we will before we would award. From a timing perspective, we wanted to have approval today so that we could get the contract in order. To kind of give you guys a brief update on schedule, our asbestos abatement will actually start next week. We had a 14-day waiting period through the DNR approval process, so that actually gets freed up on Monday of next week, and then the abatement will take place next week. So this demolition could start the following week after we get the asbestos abated. And the way the DNR permit works is that when they submit it to the DNR, the abatement company submits that to the DNR, and then the demolition contractor that is awarded is also on that same DNR permit. So it's all tied together in regards to disposal of the materials that are there.
So you would prefer if we took action today?
I think you don't have to identify that, you could identify that the low bidder, whether it's post D, just say that the committee would like to award post D based on a bid qualification that the Samuels Group would do. And if we would come back with a recommendation to say, hey, we found something that we don't think that it's apples for apples, or it doesn't have the scope, we would then come back to you again before we would enter into a contract. But you could give us the direction to enter into that agreement based on qualification that they do have everything included in their bid. And that could be the
As
same
long
thing.
as they say they're going to do everything we want done.
Yep.
I'll still move.
Okay?
I'll second, but I just have a question.
Okay, well,
Sure.
okay. We got a second, so we got it on the floor now. Now we can discuss it.
That was fast, Kurt. I've never done this before. So if we awarded it to the low bid and they do not meet one of the qualifications, what is our recourse? Then what?
The action that I'm asking you to take is giving us direction to award if they meet the qualifications, if they have. If they haven't, then I'm going to come back to you at another meeting and say, hey, we did our due diligence. They're not in accordance with the scope that's there. We're not going to make a recommendation to do that. So you're giving, language in your motion would be that we are going to go through that qualification process to make sure that they have all the scope covered.
To speed things along, can you have second low bidder include if the first one doesn't meet the qualification?
You could, in your motion, you could, yep, and then we could identify that,
They're pretty close.
They're pretty close.
yeah.
Amend my motion to be the most qualified.
Okay, so he has,
Yeah, one more question.
okay,
And yeah, somebody, another board member brought this up a week or 2 or 3 ago, about awarding the contract to the contractor that would be the most, for lack of a better word, greenest, be the most responsible in terms of disposing. So actually, and I see the wisdom of that. I really don't want to pay, to hire the low bid and have somebody take it to the nearest gully and dump it in the nearest gully. Do we have any
The language.
control over that?
The language in the RFB was that they were to maximize recycling as much as possible. Majority of the contractors that actually walk the site were talking about how they could grind the block and the concrete for reuse. So I would anticipate that that's what most of them have planned to do, but we can definitely make that a part of the qualification, if you'd like,
What would be part of the qualification?
of what their
Requirement to grind in.
what their intent is. We didn't have that in the spec, so it'd be difficult to do it at this point. I think that everybody that is approaching it has been proactive about reuse of the material. And then there is requirements in the RFB that they do need to dispose of it in accordance with the permit and the requirements, so somebody's not dumping it in their backyard, so.
Do we know what the permit, I mean, like I said, crap, sorry, I've never
Yep.
gone through do we know what the permit says about where they can?
They can't just dump it anywhere. There is landfill or reposition that they need to abide by, and we've noted that in the language of the RFB, so.
Were they all here for the?
Yes, all 4 of those that have bid actually walked through the site. Yep.
Dan, could you read your motion back?
To award the contract to the lowest bidder pending successful qualification, and the second lowest bidder if not qualified. I will include, let me reread that. Pending successful qualification as determined by the Samuels Group, and on to second lowest bidder if not qualified.
I just want to make a comment in regards, because this is going to kind of set the tone for moving forward, is that it is difficult from a public bid perspective to move to a second bidder. I know sometimes we want to be able to do that, but if they do meet the qualifications and they're in line with the scope, low bid is what wins the bid at the end of the day, and that's the criteria. Unless there is a deviation where they do not have the scope covered, that they're not in accordance with the plans and the specs, then we would say they're not in compliance with the documents and we move on to bidder number 2. I've been a part of many of them where the second bid is sometimes wanted to be taken, whether it is more local, whether there's a relationship, those sorts of things. There's not a premise to be able to do that. So if they're performing, if they're in compliance with the scope, that would be the qualification. When we get into the design documents for the main project, that will become even more prevalent, so.
I'm pretty familiar with most of the, pretty sure they're doing the job.
Yep.
You want to take, you're the one who included the idea about
Yeah.
going to the second one. You want to
Your
retract that?
recommendation to take that out of the motion?
I think if you just say for the lowest qualified, I think you've covered it. So then if,
That sounds good.
so then if we identify that the low bid isn't qualified, then we move on to the second one.
It was just a suggestion on the other committees.
Yeah.
Well, but.
Okay, let me read that.
okay, go ahead.
A motion by Shriner, second by Zeglin to award the contract to the lowest qualified bidder.
As determined by the Samuels Group. So the Samuels Group is still going to review the
Yes.
qualifications. We're kind of getting a little ahead of the game here.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, you agree with that?
One question, you said the abatement is going to be done next week.
Yes.
there was a separate cost for that. Did you ever figure out what the cost?
Yes, it ended up being, I think it was $4,100. We got 3 bids on that, and it went to Amavo Systems. I think it was just over $4,000, so that has been awarded, so.
So you agree with that second then, Tim, also?
Yes. I see Nate Tabert's on. Nate, do you have any comment on this? Nate is on the building committee. Are you tuned in, Nate?
Nate, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
You've got a lot of experience with this.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, no, I think how you guys stated it by taking the lowest qualified bidder is the exact way to go. I mean, you absolutely have to go through the bid to make sure they do have everything in there. That could be a lengthy process, and I think releasing that to the Samuels Group is the right thing to do at this point to keep it moving forward. But you know, to their point, yeah, the lowest qualified bidder absolutely could be Haas or Turf Pro or whomever has the scope covered. That's the most important thing, is to make sure the scope is covered.
And the Samuels Group is going to do that.
Yep.
When we say review qualifications, that's what we mean.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Have you-
Thank you, Nate.
I just want you to make aware, what we were anticipating for a bid was about 130 grand, is what we have.
So this came out
budgeted,
very
so
well for you then.
It's a good bid number to hear. Yep. All of them were under budget, so.
That's
I got a
good.
quick question for you.
Yep.
After they do the abatement, what's currently in there, does the DNR have to go in and do an inspection on that?
Yep, they do bring, they have an inspector that comes through, and they have to identify that it's all been abated.
And is he already scheduled, so this isn't?
Yep, when they start their abatement, then they work that out with the inspection process.
And then they can start the
Correct.
after they get approval from the DNR?
Correct, yep.
And who pays for the DNR?
It's already been part of Mavo's,
Contractor?
yes, yep. So, so everybody remembers, I did let all of the demo contractors know that we're gonna open that up for memorabilia for some time, and then that test, or the fire department, so they all are aware of that. So we will coordinate that, Jeremy and I will coordinate that so that it's done just before the demo would start. But all the contractors are made aware of that during the walkthrough, so.
So it's still end of the month, supposed to be gone?
Yep, that's what we told them, we wanted it done by the end of April. Yep.
20 days?
Most of them that walked through there talked about that it wasn't gonna be that,
few days.
yeah, it wasn't gonna be difficult to achieve it, so.
Okay, any other questions before we vote on this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, so then you would like this information
I'll
here.
grab one from them after the meeting. Yep.
And then, Paul, do you want the extra, or should I give the extra ones to you? You probably want all of them.
I'll just take one copy, you can keep.
No, but I meant you want the other bids then too, possibly, so that in
Yes,
case
all of
this
them.
one doesn't
Yes.
pan out, you can go down the pecking order then.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll make a copy right after the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so then that leads us to our next item, is discussion action on memorabilia from the high school building. How do we want to handle that? Go ahead, Jeremy.
All right, so my team is over there today, and we'll be over there again tomorrow. We're going to be disassembling all of the bleachers, staying away from any of the areas that were noted as, asbestos-type areas. We started looking at the hardwood floors, and we're going to start pulling out some of the sections that are already loose or broke away from the underlayment that's already there. But the benches will be pretty much disassembled for the full pieces and the partial pieces that have been left by the city. So we'll start collecting that and storing it in my shed and getting it out of that building. For the most part, everything else that's in there is either going to be out of our reach or outside of the realm of what anybody is going to want. Like I said, all the stuff that is desirable is stuff that's going to be outside of the realm of my staff to be able to remove the beams and stuff like that, which are, quite a people that have expressed interest in, but there's possibly no way for me to get those down. So we will have a collection of stuff out of that building, and then at that point, probably sometime next week, I'll do what was requested prior and have an ad put in the paper, and that we'll have some stuff set aside outside of that building for people to come take a few pieces from. So we're getting it all squared away, and then the timing of that, I'll finish working out with Kurt and stuff too, so.
So basically, it's almost the bleachers and the floors.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be all of the floor. The way that hardwood floor is done, it's kind of like, there's a bunch of wood strips that are attached to metal rails that run from north to south in that room, so they're only about 12 inches wide, as opposed to, you know, single strips of hardwood floor that could be 10 or 15 feet. So that floor, we can get a bunch of pieces out, but they're only gonna be about 12 inches wide and or 12 inches long, 1 inch wide, sitting on metal strips. That's the way the floor was put in. So we'll get some pieces out of there, but just to hold on to. Somebody may want it. I can see a use for it in certain crafting aspects, or, you know, making of something memorable, covering a bar top or something with, but depending on how adhered it is to other sections, there's good portions of that floor that is warped up so far that we can just pull it off with no issues, and some of it has been destroyed by the vandals that were inside of the building before, to the point that I'm not going to strip the wax, the cleaners, the chemicals. They poured all over that, so we only have a few sections that are clean and completely undamaged that we can pull up.
So, anything else? Any other questions for Jeremy? Go ahead,
I got
Randy.
one for you. Jeremy knows, or actually it's for Kurt. Once we award the contract and they start to do the demo, like you're talking about the beams, the county has no, I guess, liability on any of that after that, correct?
Correct. We've got insurance coverage from the general liability all spelled out in our proposal. That'll be part of the qualification, that their responsibility is that of that demo contractor from a general liability perspective.
So if somebody wants a beam, they have to deal with the contractor to see if they can possibly get the beam, because it's
Yeah, and I would
impossible.
really shy away from that. It really becomes the property, that what's there that they're taking down becomes the property of the contractor. So
Right.
if they want to deal with it somewhere else, that would be great, but I would
Yeah,
hate to see
off-site.
public knocking on the excavator's door and say, hey, can I
Yeah.
take that beam?
That's a whole other animal,
Yeah.
trying to destroy
It
the building
is,
versus.
it
trying to
is, but you
destroy
get a
it
ton,
carefully.
you get a ton of dumpster divers when you start doing
Yeah.
something like that, and if somebody got hurt around that, you know, the county's not liable.
No. The county is not. We are going to have a fence around that entire block before the demolition begins. It'll be gated so that then when they come in and out with their vehicles, they will. So you won't have after hours. Somebody would have to jump the fence to get in there, and it'll be locked off. So
Just
And-
one more week of parking on that side of the street. I think.
we're going to see if we can have some movable fence along Park Street for now, and then it may be an option where we can slide that out when the demo starts. But the balance of it will be driven posts. So.
Yeah, and then that lot is currently, with your concerns there, I have 4 cameras on the outside of the building that do capture that lot too. So when the fence is up, the excavators are there, and if there's, we do have it under a surveillance as well, so we can see that lot as well.
Okay, any other questions for Jeremy as far, it sounds like you got pretty much everything under control. Okay, anything else about the memorabilia part of this? Okay, moving on then. IT department update.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, status since last we met, the first quarter is over, so some things we reviewed. We're over 1,500 tickets so far in the new year, so we're ahead of the pace we had last year for the number of calls for support. Printing continues to drop, another 15%, so we're ahead of schedule on our printing issues. It's dropped more than I had hoped when we first signed the contract with E.O. Johnson. One of the issues is that we're doing chargebacks to departments so that each department feels like they have skin in the game. There's an incentive to print less, but it's a royal pain in the dupa to
Get that word spelled right.
to
I know how to spell dupa.
to get these bills out to people and have them send the permission to Paul to journal transfer the money. And I'm wondering if if the property committee, for this year, I can continue to do it, but keep in mind, do we want to do all that paperwork to transfer money from one pile to another pile within the county? If the only reason is to get people to print less and they're printing less, I mean, I don't know that department heads would suddenly be like, well, I'm not being charged anymore, so print away. So, just a thought.
Can I make one comment
ahead,
there?
Paul.
There are some departments that get to charge this to the state and get money back for it. So, I mean, we'd have to watch to see that those people can still be charged if we're going to
And the automated reports I send out would be sufficient for them. They just need to know the number of prints and they can slap a price on it.
Okay, because the thing that you hand out to us now, it's already multiplied out those copies by a price, and it's not what you're
Correct, because
so that's one thing we have to work on.
Well, it's because there's some snags in the paper cut software, and I've been working with the vendor on that, and I just haven't had time to get to that. But as far as them charging back external agencies, we can talk later on that.
Do you keep track of color print compared to black and white? How have the color prints been? Let me ask this first. Do you charge the department more for a color print than a black and white?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
He's got four
categories?
Yeah. The one area we're close to crossing the line that has stayed at the top is printing to printers in black and white. Our copier printing in black and white is not as high as I thought it was going to be when we first started. So people are still printing to printers. But color copies and color prints are both dropped dramatically since we started this.
The color prints, the cost of them compared to black and white is unbelievable.
Yeah, we came to that decision when exec finance was governing this, so they approved the chargeback prices based on what the actual cost was.
Okay, good.
So I feel like the number is fair and it works. It's just people are so used to printing to something sitting right next to them. It's not something we've adjusted right away, but hopefully with the new Justice Center, the design will have people being able to use central copiers instead of each having one at their desk. Might see some more benefits from that
Well, and
because of
those
the
central
design.
copiers have a way to keep track of who's printing from them, too.
Well, we track everything, regardless if it's a desktop printer or a copier. Central copiers are faster and cheaper. So that's what we try and encourage people to use. And so far, that's the one area where we're not hitting the targets, but we're still underneath the limits set by E.O. Johnson.
Okay.
Staff, we're all vaccinated and back in the office. I think working from home will still be occasional for staff as it was before this COVID hit, looking at probably 2 to 3 times a month instead of 3 to 4 times a week. So we're all happy to be back there. Time is still accruing. We had conversations this week, did evaluations and discussions with the staff, and they've been made aware that they have to start taking some time off. We worked on the job descriptions and the questionnaires for the study. We completed that together. Not real a lot to report on that. I am going to send out the revised copies of all 3 positions that we have in the department to the property committee members. I'll send you an email so you can review that I didn't feel like dumping that all on you on paper today. Look at it at your leisure. We're going to be restarting the multi-factor authentication project next week. The vendor will be here Monday and Tuesday, and we'll be finishing up the pieces we need to start rolling that out.
What's that again?
Multi-factor authentication. That's going to be either a token that you have from your smartphone, a code that gets sent to your smartphone, or a token you'll carry for those that prefer to carry one. And then you have to plug that number in whenever you sign in. So then we can make the password requirement less.
To your unit.
Yeah, we're not planning on rolling them out to you guys.
Okay, employees.
Just to employees. But that may change, you never know. Depends how much access you rascals get. I mean, if you get more access into the data, then we have to protect you the same as everybody else.
One more time, multi-factor.
MFA, 2FA, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So, issues, we, as part of the evaluation process and the review of the Justice Center project over the last couple of months, the team has worked hard to try and figure out how we're going to get everything done. When you've spent a year on COVID business and nothing else, you realize how far behind you've fallen on everything else. We haven't done any training. We haven't done any end-user training. We haven't done a lot of different things that are, like, we haven't taken vacations. So everything's falling behind. So the committee had recommended looking into, is there any way we could, should we be looking at additional staff or part-timers or outsourcing? And we do have some options in outsourcing, but they're rather expensive, and we'd like to only bring those to you that are focused on a particular project, rather than having them come in and try and do some of the busy work, because then we have somebody who has to babysit them, and it takes 6 months to a year just to figure out this operation, because there's so many complexities to local government. One of the projects we identified is the backbone project upgrade. We'd like that to be an end-to-end, where we bring in a consultant who would handle the process of creating the scope and setting the criteria and helping us determine what's going to work in both the new facility and connecting everything back into the old facility. So that's probably something that I would be bringing forth once I get some bids from vendors that we have worked with that we trust to be able to handle the work we're asking. There's two questions I need to ask the property committee. One would be, are we, as a county, are we comfortable with a consultant that helps us design and figure out what the solution is, and also providing the bid on the solution? Like if Kurt was doing the project management and all the things he's provided at Samuel's Group, if they were also bidding on the architecture and the project itself, would you be comfortable with that? Are you okay if the people that we hire to be consultants also would be putting in bids for the equipment and the installation?
It's kind of a question of how much money is involved in this, and how, what's the convenience to us? It'd be more convenient to us to have the same person do both, or the same firm do both. But there is certainly the potential for a conflict of interest.
We have contacted some consultants that we've worked with in the past, and two of the three I've been in touch with are comfortable with doing bid documents that they would potentially bid on, but they feel comfortable in producing those documents, aware that we might give the business to somebody else. But they would want the process they use to help us get there to be proprietary and not shared with any winning bidders.
I'd be comfortable if you evaluated these on a case-by-case basis and made a recommendation to the committee.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for, Tim, thank you. Would that, second question is, since that is a key feature of the Justice Center project, would that be something I'd be putting towards Justice Center funding, or would you prefer a resolution and draw it on general revenue funds? Because that might be a project we start this year.
God, I don't know.
You got an answer for that?
You're talking about the outsourcing, the cost of the outsourcing.
The cost of the outsourcing would include I want to bundle the whole thing together. What we estimate the cost of the solution and the consulting to get there into one price.
Does this make it too damn complicated?
No, what Tim is proposing would be bringing in an additional consultant to really look at the function and efficiencies of your operation and infrastructure. So part of what Venture is providing is they're working with Tim's team to talk about the new data center, the connection to the old building, when we start talking about the renovation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but the renovation of the old portion of what is kind of a long-range plan from your infrastructure for your IT support, and then moving forward to that. I would see it as an additional member of your team coming in and working with Venture and their consultants to be able to do it. So there isn't a duplication in efforts. What you're proposing, there's portions of what you may want to put into the scope, and Tim has been asking me about budget, because there's some of the stuff that's already in the budget of the Justice Center from an equipment perspective. It's the consultant piece that we wouldn't have. And there may be some things that you add into your scope that we didn't have covered in the budget, and that's where we would need to determine that. So.
I think that's accurate, Kurt, except it's a narrower focus than that. We're going to scope out all the elements of the 5 pieces that we have. We've already done 2 of them.
Okay.
The one piece that is that backbone piece. We don't have anybody on staff, myself included, with the networking background to upgrade our network backbone for what's going to be required with the new building.
Sure.
And connecting it to the old building. So we'd like somebody with some expertise to help us scope out the project from our end to make sure we're selecting the right solution, be it Cisco or Extreme or whatever appliance, and then make sure that we can integrate it into the existing structure as well. If we leverage the architects and the experts there, if that's possible, to bring somebody from that team in to help us scope the project out, who has specific network skills.
Yeah, I think if we talk to Venture, IMEG may have a representative there that could potentially give you a proposal for that too, that would be above and beyond what they have in their scope. I'm not saying you need to select them, but I think it would be another option to consider, and maybe you get a proposal from them, and then you get a proposal from a couple other vendors. I think it would be wise.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, does it answer your questions?
I guess what I'm hearing is, if we hire an outside, outsource this, which budget does it come from? Does it come from the Justice Center budget, or does it come from the county general fund? That's the question I'm hearing.
Correct.
I'm not sure, did you address that?
The consultant, we wouldn't have carried in our budget, the consultant costs that he's talking about, and not all of what you may do for an upgrade of the backbone may not be covered, but there's portions of it that would be covered, I guess what I'm saying.
The equipment itself.
Yeah.
The strands of fiber that's going to be connecting wiring closets in the old building to the new building is being built into the system.
Yes.
We just have to figure out the edge devices and the switching capacity to make sure it all works together. And we don't have the on-staff expertise with the networking that's involved. We'd like to bring in somebody, and if you're an electrical networking person, we'd like to interview them on that and see if they can help us scope that out.
Yeah, I would just have Venture, have IMEG put a proposal together based on whatever you want for deliverables. That way you have them to look alongside the other proposals you get.
Okay, so when I do a request for a statement of work, I would put the same thing together for the other
Yep.
2, and then I could do one. Who would I send that to?
I would send that to Corey Byer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I think Corey's on too. He might have heard our discussion, so.
all right. I will go ahead and do that.
Corey, did you have a comment?
No, I'm online, so I'd heard the discussion.
Okay. Training was mentioned previously when in the evaluations. We want to do some cross-training inside the department. We have a security, online security training through InfoSec. We're going to continue, maybe even add a seat. But next year's budget, we have to likely include a large chunk for training for my staff, because there's a whole lot of new stuff coming down the pipe, and so we're going to have to have a big number in next year's budget. Right now, one of the Justice Center concerns would be a second access point into the building. TCC, Jeremy, we've already discussed setting up a meeting, and I think that should happen soon. I haven't heard back from Kevin, but they're going to work with us on getting a second access point into the existing building. 1, for redundancy in the long term, and 2, so that when this handhole in the parking lot gets taken out, we're ready to go. That's about it. Tablet status, we have Seisha, Nemitz, and Wallach are still remaining to get theirs. It has been sent to me that the chair can happily, after the Building Oversight Committee meeting, schlep on up there and meet with Renee. She'd be happy to give you the quick and dirty.
I missed the meeting with her.
Yeah. So she did remind me of that. So don't shirk. And then Paul's tablet is ready to go. It's just we were waiting. I'm still reviewing different options for what we had proposed. We discussed with Paul, and he's going to cover it out of county board budget, is to upgrade your Office 365 licenses so that Paul can just drop your packets into a folder and then you could upload them from there as a possibility. So we're looking at that. But for that $1,300, I had to go do my due diligence and do some research to find out if there's a different solution that I could do it for the same price. And so far, I'm not finding anything in that price range. Everybody that has a automated board solution like that is way more expensive than $1,300, but.
It's just an annual fee, that 1,300?
Yep. Right now, you guys are costing us $17 a year. It's called a kiosk license. It basically just gives you email. You have a full license as the chair. So you're the most dangerous board member because you have access to stuff.
I knew I was stuck on that.
Yeah.
He doesn't look it.
Yeah. So if we would be adding 16 full seats like what John already has, and then you would have access in, but we would limit your access to the network so that you're not as much a danger as a full-time staffer. Actually, we have had some interesting experiences. Some of the board members you wouldn't expect have taken to it rather well. They're trying, they're giving it their best, and they're learning how to use the device, and that's what we were hoping, so that when Paul and the clerk's office comes up with a plan and a platform they'd like to distribute packets, then we'll bring everybody in for a full training, and we'll go through everything that you need to cover and answer any questions, and we can do that one-on-one, small groups, full group, whatever you'd like. Hopefully sometime in May, possibly, because I think Paul's got a plan, so we just have to move
Training
forward.
session? Did I hear training session?
About distributing, once we figure out how we're going to distribute paperlessly, then we want to do the training.
He's doing the training on the actual implement right now in his office. That's what the last
Right.
3.
But we want to make sure we work through all the processes so everybody understands where their packets are coming from, how they can modify them in meetings. So you can write on yours and save that to a folder, so you can keep notes on your tablet as well. So they're walking around with all kinds of paper.
It looks like we could have Dan do the training, he's already doing it.
Yeah.
Training on.
I was unsuccessful with that magic pen, so that's why I'm.
You're excited for training?
Be in PDF.
Oh, don't tell me. I have to be a PDF.
All right, well, there's something in the way of old dogs and new tricks, but we won't go there, so. That's all I had, unless there's any questions.
Okay, any questions then for Tim? Thank you very much.
Tim, you're gonna contact me, or should I get ahold of you to come up and get my laptop?
Well, if you're on the list, you can stop up too.
I can't do it today, so you should
All you have to do is
give me a call.
email IT help desk and say, I need my meeting. They'll get in touch with you.
And I thought Rick Nimitz had already set up a time, so
I think he may have.
yeah.
I just saw the 3 of them sitting there, and I'm like,
And they got names on them, right?
yeah, they got a little name on the bag, so I'm like, well,
Is that what you're going for last?
you don't want to be last, come on now.
I'll make sure I'm last. Okay, Richard?
Okay, anything else for Tim? Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, moving on. Jeremy, you're up.
Okay, so just a brief few things of over the past month here, what we've been dealing with. So I'll start with when I was working with Tim, I went under the crawl space of the building to we had a potential area where we were hoping that he could be able to get that handhold put in for his cables, but while I was under there, that project didn't quite pan out the way we wanted it to, but I did find a leak in the heating system underneath the building. It's an area of the building that we don't go into very often because it's only about 18 inches high and runs the length of the building. It's not a very fun place to be. I got in there. It is getting out. It's getting out that is the problem. So, because you gotta go in head first and you gotta come out feet first. So it is not the most pleasant place to be. But we did find a leak in that heating system under there, and we got that repaired. So, but that was kind of what it was causing some issues that I was having. My assumptions are over the winter with our heating system, when we were constantly getting air into the system. That would kind of explain that. And it was actually under Tim's office where I found it. And I could tell it had been leaking for a while because everything else is flat and dry, and where this leak was about 12 inches deep of a hole in the ground. So it had been leaking for quite a while. So we got that one repaired. Now going hand in hand back with the HVAC systems, next I'm going to be replacing the fill valve that is attached to our chill system. So what that is, I just have a valve that runs off of the water supply that keeps a constant pressure inside of my cooling system. Well, that thing has failed, so I've had to keep the fill valve turned off, and then I fill it by hand temporarily. This should be an automatic system, but we've been having some issues with the cooling system, which has led to a loss of water, and then we have to hand fill it going forward. So this will be replaced at the same time because we had a catastrophic failure of one of our chillers, which is pretty much, it's only about 3 years old. Everything on this that failed is going to be covered under warranty issues, but one of my actual chilling units themselves, where the water and the Freon mix, basically the Freon cools down the water, we had a crack inside of that unit, which allowed water into the Freon lines and Freon into the water lines. So that pretty much killed that unit. So as you walk around outside, you'll see we have 2 chillers outside, one large and one small. The smaller unit is offline for the foreseeable future, which is fine as it sits now, because that's just a makeup unit for us. It really only runs during August, maybe last part of July, August, and the first part of September to help keep the temps down. So as it sits right now, we're good to go, but this is just more of an FYI, keeping you posted on what's going on with that. In that same general area of our chillers, it looks like in the past 2 weeks, we had somebody drive into the brick wall that surrounds my chillers. I pointed it out to Chuck when he was here the other day. I'm not super concerned about it at the moment because of the fact I'm not sure what's going to happen going forward with that wall. And the amount of damage that was done to my wall is insignificant compared to the amount of damage that would have done to whoever's car hit it. Nobody stepped forward to let me know, but they did take a pretty good sized chunk right on the corner of the wall. So if you see a car around here that's got some yellow scrapes and really bad dents on either side.
Well, one of the places was really high too, wasn't it almost?
Yeah, I'm assuming it was a truck that probably went through
Big
there.
truck?
So it's not where he parks. If it's a truck, yeah, it's going to be a truck maybe around the size of, well, not as big as Austin's truck, but like the highway, like what, and I'm not saying it was the highway shop, but a truck about that size is probably the one that did that, so.
Didn't leave any color on the block.
It took all the block off, so. But again, like I said, I'm not super concerned with that at the moment because the future of that wall is still, it's not up in the air, but it should be going away and something else going around it right now. It didn't structurally damage the wall. There's no concern about it falling over. It was more just aesthetics that it took out. But again, just letting you know what's going on with that. The north entrance on this back parking lot, as some of you pull in and out of that, I'm sure you found those 2 nice big giant divots that are missing. My guys are out there today. We went and got a concrete saw to try to square those saws up. I was going to have a contractor just replace everything, but then again, in talking with Kurt, it looks like probably come July-ish, that would be going away anyway, so I didn't want to spend a significant amount of money repairing that. So we'll be throwing in a couple pieces of rebar just to hopefully get it underneath what's there, some pea gravel and some concrete on top of it, just to take away the trip hazard and the giant clunk as you drive in and out of the parking lot until it gets ripped out again. But we did set up for the replacement of the sidewalks on the south side of the building. I'm just waiting on a date from Jarowski to get that started, but again, that one will be, we're going to end up removing all of the existing sidewalk and all of the landscaping between the sidewalk and the street, and then have everything there re-poured at a proper pitch, so that the water, when it melts off and rains from the the lawn there actually makes its way to the street and doesn't freeze up every winter and create an issue where I close that sidewalk. I got the project that I have this year to install a drop-down makeup heater for the sheriff's garage. That'll be installed here this summer before the winter hits in. And that one, it'll be nice, especially going forward, because it looks like the area that it's going to be going into is going to be the part of the garage that my department will take over when my shed gets torn down in a few years. So that'll make up for the constant going up and down of the doors that we have during the winter season. So that'll be installed, and that was already a pre-approved project. My staff has been going out once a week to the Annex Building in Independence to do the custodial services out there for the health department. And so between us helping out the health department doing that, we help out the Parks Department going out to Peachick Park quite a bit. We have been utilizing a vehicle from time to time from land management, but again, this is just my forewarning again that when budget time comes again this year, I will be requesting for a vehicle for my department. Consider, you know, we do mail in our own vehicles, but with the fact that we're driving, you know, outside of the courthouse quite a bit, and then potentially putting a plow on that, which would be expedite the snow removal process for me, because a skid steer works, but what takes me 2 hours in a skid steer can take me 30 minutes with a plow truck. So again, it's just a refresher that I asked for it last year and I think the year before. So I'll be asking for it again this year. That's just a heads up on that. We have had some issues with people parking in the ADRC parking lot after hours. We did put up no parking signs last year, but now that they are parking there during business hours as well. The staff over there brings it to our attention when they're there, so that I ask them they don't have to be confrontational with people to let us know. But every time that we've gotten over there, they're already gone, because they're having issues with that, and they're having issues with last week it was spring break, and kids obviously are out of school, and that alley becomes a very prominent place for the local kids, which has caused some issues. There's not much I can do about that. It's a public street, but just some issues that we're dealing with over there. And last, I'm going to be looking at adding a standalone mini split heating air conditioning system to where dispatch is currently right now. With the issues with the chillers that we've had from time to time, I found that within about 15 minutes of me shutting the chillers off on a hot day, dispatch seems to be the most quickly and most affected by that, to the point that my chilled water will be sitting at about 45 degrees, which is what the set point is to cool the building. 15 minutes after I shut that chiller off to work on it, that water's jumped to 90 degrees, so what would be a chilling system becomes a heating system, and dispatch can't open their windows, they can't do anything like that. So as it sits right now, I do have one in the building that's not currently used, and it's located where dispatch used to be, in the basement. I'm looking at the cost of relocating that unit from where it is up to where dispatch is now, and then once dispatch relocates into the new building, I'd be able to pull it out of there and reutilize it in another location. But with dispatch not having the ability to open their doors, open their windows, and being stuck in there, when the heat goes out or the AC goes out, it would be nice for them to have a small makeup unit. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at too. That shouldn't be a high enough expense that I'm going to be coming and asking for any more money if it's just relocating a smaller unit. And if anything else, I can buy a small 110 mini split system for $1,000, which would fall into my small items of equipment, and we can install that ourselves, other than potentially having to have HVAC come and vacuum the lines to charge it with Freon if needed. Other than that, I have nothing else too major or too pressing at the moment, so if you have anything for me, just let me know.
Any questions for Jeremy? Okay, thank you very
Potholes
much.
are pretty bad.
What's that?
Those two potholes are pretty bad. Every time I come here, they're worse, so.
Yeah, well, and
I
you'll
go on
notice.
the other entrance.
Yeah, you'll notice when you leave and the rocks out here at the back door, that piece that's supposed to belong there, we've just set up here.
Okay.
And they're very large pieces, so, but, yeah, that was between the snow plow between us with the skid steer, and the city truck, the city plow took out or broke a piece once, and but again, like I said, to fix it correctly, it didn't pay to spend money on something that would be there for 2 to 3 months. So it'll get a temporary fix, and it shouldn't be as bad as it is now. We're hoping to do it this week, here at the end of this week, today, tomorrow, but with the temperamental, the way the weather's going to be, while we need the rain, I don't want to get surprised by a sudden downpour of rain trying to pour concrete at the same time. So we'll do the cuts probably today or tomorrow, just to square it off, and then we'll have the concrete poured next week. So we'll close half of that entrance off for a day, or a day and a half probably next week, just to let that cure, to make sure that it's good to go for going forward. Like I said, for the vehicles, it's not so bad. I am more concerned with Whitehall residents tripping in it as they're walking back and forth, the quick trip or something like that. One more thing too, that it's been brought to me a few times this week in particular. People are concerned with the odor inside of the building when they get here. Again, there's nothing I can do about that. That odor is coming from the pits outside of town, the sewage treatment plant outside of town. In the evenings and in the early mornings, the odor in Whitehall is different. And then the air intake on my air handlers brings that into the building, and it gets trapped in here a little bit more, because when it's warm, my discharge air is usually closed. We're just trying to recycle and keep the same air cool. Right now, with the smells in the morning, I've had it discharging 100% air to try to have a better turnover rate in the building, but everyone that either drives here or lives here knows what that odor is from, and there's not much I can do about it. So the upside is that I'm trying to cool it down. If it's happened in the winter and we're just heating that smell up, it would be a lot worse. But if anybody says anything to you, like I said, they brought it to my attention. I've addressed the people that have brought it to me, but just so you can speak on it as well if it's brought to you, so.
Okay, anything else for Jeremy? Okay, thank you. Okay, and our final item before meeting with the Oversight Committee, possible action regarding the street closure. Is that something you would take care of, Kurt, or who's?
I don't know that we'll be doing any action today. I can give you an update on where we're at.
I do have the agreement here. And
Well,
we do have the mayor here, so.
We do. We've actually had some late-minute adjustments to bring everybody up to speed. We've been working with the city and the, oh, look at that, somebody turned on my mic. We've been working with the city and the engineers from Venture to really identify the utility relocation that needs to come out of Park and Hobson. We had a meeting with Rick Niemeyer and then Chris Gerhardt, which is the legal counsel for the city. And there is a draft of an agreement that is underway. The copy that you have, John, has actually been revised. What we did is Rick and Chris and I met a week and a half ago, a brief Teams meeting. We suggested that Rick put a draft together that would then go to the city for their review. They've actually had a chance to look at it and make some edits that Rick and I looked at, and don't have any objection to the edits that they're proposing. So Rick is going to work on updating those edits. And kind of the game plan that we would like to see from a project team would be to have this agreement that is a written agreement between the city and the county in regards to what the utility looks like, how we deal with the closure of Park Street, along with an exhibit that identifies the responsibilities of both parties to be acted upon by the county board prior to the city acting upon it, because the county is the one who's asking for this street to get closed, right, rather than the other way around. And it would be looking to have it on this month's agenda for the county board to take action on that. And then after the county takes action on that agreement, then it would go before the city for their approval. Now, there is a time frame that Chris had shared with us. I think it's 3 weeks that we've got to let that sit after it's moved before the public to be able to chime in on that before we can actually close it. That will not impact progress at all in regards to what we would do. But it's moving along, and I just want to share that working with Ashley and all of the city officials has been a joy. They've been great to work with, and I think it's just been a good team effort. They had their engineer from SEH who's working on the Hobson Street project work with our engineers. We've had a Teams meeting with them. It's just been a collective effort, and it's been great. So we're close. I don't know if it makes sense to go over that draft today because it is going to change, but I would like to have it on the county board agenda for action. And I don't anticipate much questions. It's what we talked about, where you guys are going to take care of all the utilities that are in Park Street to relocate them around into the adjacent streets. We've got that included in the project budget. The only variable that has changed is that because of the timing of Hobson Street, our contractors with the Justice Center will put the water main in, that they're going to put a new water main in Hobson Street from Main to Park and potentially through up to the alley there. That's kind of a discussion that we have, because we don't want to put the main in there, repave it, and then tear it up again. So it's going to be a phased approach, and the costs associated with that, we would have that as a separate bid line item for our contractor, so that they can see the exact bid that came for that portion of the water main. That would then be allocated to the city for that expense, and we would just keep that separate. So it's kind of in a nutshell of what we're looking at for an agreement. So.
Okay, so no action for us needed right now then?
No action, kind of an update. If you've had questions, let me know, but I think it's been pretty smooth, so.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
I know, everybody's looking at their watch, but again, I want to make sure
Yep.
I want to make sure what's going on here.
Yep.
So that contract on John's desk over there is going to be superseded, so that's why we're not looking at it.
That's just a draft.
It's a draft.
It's a
Okay.
draft that we started between two legal counsels that's going to go back and forth a couple times here before it comes to you for approval.
And the full board would see this on the 20th?
20th.
20th.
Yep.
Okay, so that's only 10, 11 days away, so that's not really delaying things too much.
No.
At that time, when it goes before the full board, I'll be asking for an explanation of what the edits are, or I want to know exactly what we're doing, what we're agreeing to.
Sure.
And one thing that you're talking about, the water main, you can't have a water main running underneath the new building.
No. No, it was in Hobson Street between Park and Main Street is where the water main, they're putting a new water main in Hobson Street. And when we open up that portion of Hobson Street to take care of all of the utilities that we're relocating out of Park Street, we're going to have it open anyway, so we're going to run the water main at the same time. So there will be no utilities under the new building.
Right.
All that will be.
Well, Randy will
relocated.
remember all the discussion we had 2 years ago about the utilities and who's going to do what. And
Yep.
we just want to make sure that
Yep.
it's done right.
Yep.
I mean, it almost stopped this project.
Yep.
I mean, it was.
No. I have
Nobody
to-
really knew what was under
Right,
there.
right.
I have to tell you that I do not see this being an issue at all. We've had multiple engineers look at this. We had a survey. I actually had a survey updated again to make sure that we got it all taken care of. So I think we've got a good handle on it. I do. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anything else then? Okay. Do we want to take a couple-minute break before we go in with the?
I actually think because of the Building Oversight Committee, I think the judge was planning for 10:30. So if we start a little later, it's not going to hurt their feelings, so.
I was told when I did this agenda that it was going to be at 10, so that's what went out, but then when Rick did the agenda for building, he did
put it at 10:30,
10:30.
yes.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
can I get some clarification for the minutes as to who Debbie is attending virtually?
That
Debbie Foss.
Debbie Foss from the
Okay.
Trempealeau County Times.
Thank you.
Yes.
Steve is from Venture. Steve and Corey both are from Venture, and they're part of John's team.
Okay, take a short break then, and then we'll come back with the Building Oversight Committee.
We gonna set up a next meeting, or
Pardon me?
we're gonna set up our next meeting now?
Oh,
for
we could
property?
take care of that before we, yeah. And let's take care of agenda items right away then, too. Okay,
Sorry, guys.
So disappointed.
we shouldn't need anything more about the demolition, should we? That should be all taken care of by May. Memorabilia should be all done. Tim, you would still be on. Jeremy would still be on. Will the street closure thing be done by then too, or we probably will be talking?
I would keep it on there.
Keep it on there?
We'll keep it on there.
Okay. Will we want to meet with the Building Oversight Committee again?
I guess I want to throw it out, and I think we could talk about it with the Building Oversight Committee. And part of the discussion when we do it in joint session today is what I wanted to talk about, which committee we will report to and who's going to be taking action. From what I have seen at the county board meeting, and I think after talking to exec finance, is that the property committee will be the one that's actually taking action, because you have the elected officials here. A Building Oversight Committee only has a couple.
Doesn't have some elected, yeah.
So the Building Oversight Committee can still be engaged if we want to, but we're getting to a point at the completion of design when we go into construction that I would see that would potentially end, and then we would report to the property committee. But I would anticipate the Building Oversight Committee would continue until we break ground and we get going, because there'll be discussion throughout design. And I'm only saying that so that we're not having two committees working on the same thing. People can still be involved. I want people to feel involved, because that's what's made this project so much fun. To have all the people involved has been cohesive. So to answer your question, I think that
Should keep it on.
For now, yeah.
And then unless the Building Oversight Committee in our next meeting decides that they
Yep.
feel it's not necessary.
Yep.
Okay, anybody know of any items that we feel we should add to the agenda?
If you just want to have a standing agenda item that will give you a monthly update moving forward, we can do that. So you can
Okay.
just put update from Venture and Samuels, and
Okay.
we can give you an update
Paul,
on
you're gonna add
progress
that
that's
in
being
then?
done, and that can
Okay.
just be a standing item on the agenda.
That sounds good. Anybody think of anything else, any other issues that we need to add? Okay, then setting the next meeting date,
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Right, you got May.
That's a-
That's Monday. Oh, no, I got.
Wait, you're in the wrong
Sorry,
committee.
Thursday, May 5th.
The Thursday would be the
No,
6th.
6th, yeah.
I was still on my debt finance.
Yeah, I think you,
Does that sound good to everyone?
yep.
Thursday, May 6th, 9 o'clock?
That's better than 8.
That's what George was saying yesterday, too.
Didn't change that. It was asked if we wanted to change.
You gotta come out and do chores for me in the morning, Chuck.
Okay, property committee, May 6th at 9 o'clock then.
That won't be an audit date either. so
No, it won't be an audit date either, so that'll, yeah. Okay, so we take a couple of minute break and then we'll come back and get things going with the,
You adjourning this?
5 minutes, yes.
Are you adjourning this one?
No,
or
I'm
you
not
just
gonna adjourn
continue
it.
it?
Just-
All right, gotcha. Gotcha, chief.
I never did this before, so I did list them here and prices.
It's just for your records.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can probably get going then, since we've got everybody here, it looks like. Okay, we'll get back to business here. John, you want to call your,
Yeah, we'll call the Business Oversight Committee.
Has joined the meeting.
Business Oversight? Building Oversight Committee agenda. And certify the open meeting law requirements have been met. We have a 13-item agenda. Looking for approval of the agenda.
Motion approved.
That's by Sesa.
Second.
By Paulson. Public comment period, we had that earlier, I think that's,
yeah.
feel free to call in anytime, 715-538-1770. If you have a call and question, you can call in, otherwise we're gonna just keep on going in the interest of time. Item 6 was discussion action regarding updates on existing courthouse remodel plans.
Look at him, he's scared, he's scared. Look at him.
So, thank you. I'm going to hand out to all of you in a minute I guess what I would call a first draft of floor plans for how we would reuse the existing building. But before I do that, I want to just talk with you briefly about how we got to where we are with these plans. Because if I hand them out now, you won't be listening to me, because you'll be focusing on the plans. So when we started this process, now maybe 6 weeks or so ago, Elizabeth Yeagle in our office, who's done a lot of the interior design work on the project, and maybe some of you have met her in one of the presentations where she came and talked about all the materials for the building, the interior materials. Maybe yes, maybe no. We started the process by working with all the department heads. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll get to this in a second. We started with a questionnaire to everybody, asking them what their needs were, what their staffing requirements were, et cetera. Followed that up with a meeting that we had with each one of the department heads here in town. We were here for a couple days. We met with each one of them. Out of that, developed what we call a space program, which is basically a list of rooms and their sizes, et cetera. When we had that draft program done, we sent it off again to each individual department head so they'd have a chance to look at that. For many of them, the list made sense and it was correct. For others, there were some clarifications that need to be made, and Elizabeth spoke with all of them, mostly virtually, in terms of bringing everybody up to the same level of development. Once we had the space program, we then started putting together some ideas on paper and how to reuse the existing building. We created essentially a very informal group of some of the key department heads. Many of you participated in that, are here in the room today, where we came and showed a lot of different ideas as to what to do. Out of that came some ideas where we brought everything together, seemed to make some sense. We then developed some floor plans of each of the individual departments. Each of the department heads has seen their individual area, if you will. No one until today has seen the whole thing together. But everybody has seen their individual portion of the plan, because we wanted to be sure, again, that the department heads were being listened to, that we incorporated their needs into this project. Now, granted, we know we have a budget that we have to meet. We also know that we have to try to reuse as much of the existing building as we can to try to stay within budget. So there were some goals in that regard. But our first and foremost goal here was to make sure that we were meeting the needs of the departments, because what's going to happen in this work is going to could last for decades, and we want to be sure that at least as a first draft that we're meeting all of those needs. And I think for the most part we have. I know that one of the comments and the conversations we're going to have here in a minute is the location of this boardroom. And I know Tim has brought that forward, and it's a good topic, and we will talk about it. That in fact, when we started talking about this, one of my goals was to get the boardroom up on the first floor so it could be close to the front entrance. And we'll talk more in detail about that in a minute. Kurt, you have been involved in this. Any thoughts that you want to add to what I just described?
Nope, you're doing well.
He doesn't want to touch it either, does he? Okay, so
Thank you.
of course, standing up there, I'm the furthest away from the door, so I can't escape. So,
Oh, there's a door on this side. It's a clear path to this one.
Are you going to be able to put the handout up on the screen?
Yes. As soon as I can
Thank
figure
you.
out how to advance the slides. Okay. Existing courthouse remodeling plans. Okay. Let me back up.
Right click and then it'll get.
I think I went too far.
One too far.
I don't want to do that.
You click previous there, John, then it'll go back.
There, okay. Can everybody see that? Is there any way of getting this thing off the screen? Maybe not. That's okay. We'll deal with that. So why don't I walk you through the plans, and then I certainly know we're going to open up for lengthy conversations. I mentioned before that the county boardroom, in many respects, wants to be on the first floor and right near the main entrance to the building, so that people don't have to travel real far through the building to get to wherever it ends up being, especially in the evening. As we talked with, particularly with the TV people here, one of the concerns they had was that if you move the boardroom, you're going to have to move the TV studio with it, because during the times that you have board meetings, there's a lot of staff movement between the studio and the boardroom. So just keep that in mind when we talk about the boardroom. So in this first draft, and I'll refer to it as a first draft, here are our thoughts about the boardroom. That we would retain it here. We're going to do a complete gut of the room. We would take the bathrooms that are over here out, because we have bathrooms upstairs that we're going to be building brand new. And that room, larger than it currently is now, and we've got a couple different ways of showing the plan and the furniture. So let's say in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that where the front of the room would be here behind me, with the seating facing towards me where I am at the podium, and then there's a gallery in the back that's to the east. The plan below flips that so that the front of the room is going to be to the east, and the gallery here is in the back. And then the other option that you can see in the upper right-hand corner kind of is a halfway, where the front of the room is where it is now, kind of similar to what you've got laid out currently, and then the gallery is off to the east, to the side. So those are some thoughts about how we could expand this boardroom in its current location, trusting that it stays here in the long plan. Other things that we've talked about with the departments, you'll know that where the Trempealeau room is, up the stairs and over and around, there are other rooms back there that are storage rooms, etc. I think the departments recognize that they can get rid of a lot of the stuff that's in those rooms, and we could actually turn them into conference rooms as well. I think there's a need across the board for more conference room space. It's not necessarily in an ideal location, but I think it might make good use of that space for very little cost. So then let's go then to the next page.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Regarding the potential conference over in the existing Trempealeau room. In the past, we've had issues with personnel in that area because that was never designed for staff. And the word was, because it was never designed for staff, that HVAC and air circulation was inadequate. I was just curious as if we paid any attention to that possibility. I know we had some issues with employee illness, having been housed down there. And if your proposal here would indicate addressing that potential problem.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think we need to make note of that. Yes. Jeremy?
So I know what you're referring to, which is why we ended up moving dispatch and IT and whatnot out of the basement there too. When we did replace the air handler that services the sheriff's department and that basement there too, we did increase the the turnover and the CFM for that by almost doubling from what was existing to what we have now. So the turnover is quite a bit better, and that was more of a design point on my end, because we moved everyone else out except for maintenance. We left maintenance in the basement. So if at that time, while I was presently going to be stuck in the basement, considering the health issues that all of my predecessors had, I did ensure that there was a higher turnover rate of the air down there. Dispatch, I know, had more concerns because they're like where they are now. They were more sealed away, and they didn't have their own standalone system, which is something I addressed even in property shortly, just a bit ago. But to your point, just so that you guys are aware too, we did increase the CFM for that particular area to help expedite that. And these would just be for conference rooms,
Yeah.
potentially anyway, for people only there for a day to, an hour to a day, so.
Never mind.
Well, since, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk about
Go
the
ahead,
boardroom.
Tim.
And I know John would like to defer this but I would like to talk about this. About a week ago, I heard that the plans included leaving the boardroom in the current location, as you can see on the diagram. I'd like to, we don't have a quorum of board members here, but we do have quite a few board members here. May make a few suggestions about that. First of all, I'd like everybody to remember that the board has organized, backed, promoted, and is paying for this whole project. What's happening here, what I see is happening in the process is the board has got moved to the lowest priority, the lowest spot of the priority list, and all the department heads have had a say in what they need and what their future space needs are and so forth, and no one talked to the board. Even though the board meetings the full board meetings only take place once a month, but thanks to the COVID situation, virtually every committee meeting has been held here. So this room is suddenly getting an awful lot, the county boardroom is suddenly getting an awful lot of use. So you can't make the argument that it's only used once a month and therefore you can relegate it to the basement because nobody ever comes down there. The other objection I have to all the existing plans is they have this rank and rows and file arrangement. John, I have to remind you that this arrangement is COVID only. At least in the past, there was an attempt made to have sight lines between all the board members. We had a sort of horseshoe arrangement, or a modified horseshoe arrangement. We did the best we could with the space and with the pre-existing condition of these columns. And whatever we're going to do in the future, we need board members to be seated so they can see each other, and that they're not sitting here with two or three people sitting behind your backs. So that's another serious reservation I have about these plans. So whether or not the boardroom is located on the first floor or the second floor, or the basement, is not as big a concern to me as that the boardroom be laid out in a way that all the board members can see in one another, that there are sight lines, and the people can see one another when they have debates. The board meetings can sometimes become very acrimonious. This arrangement is is the biggest barrier to communication that I could think of. This isn't it isn't a classroom situation. We need a way where everybody can see one another. And I've seen that arrangement in other counties. So I'd like the architects to consider rearranging the seating arrangement for the circular horseshoe, B, moving the boardroom closer to giving a much more space and getting us away from these columns and keeping proximity to the bathrooms.
Okay, Kurt,
That's my advocacy for the board.
Kurt, you want to make a comment?
Yeah. I guess I want to apologize, Tim, because you are accurate. We didn't come to the board members to talk about the location because we were just looking for a large space, and I could see where the perception would be that you guys did get the lowest priority, and I think that's a fair assessment. That wasn't intended, and I don't want the perception to be that you had heads of departments that were vying for real estate. It was kind of the process that John talked about, was going through and identifying spaces, and John and I will take responsibility about where we place them in regards to what would be the efficient flow of the public to be able to get to the departments that are used on a more frequent basis than others. And I think as we go through the balance of the plans, I think we come back to the boardroom discussion, because the topic will definitely be addressed. We've heard what's been said, and again, it's a draft. But I would like you to see, and I know none of you have seen this in its entirety, but what I saw out of this design and what John and Elizabeth and their team did is they were able to put something together that I think meets the needs of all of the departments outside of the county board room, that there's a lot of logic to it. So again, it's a draft. We can definitely address that, but I just wanted to bring that up. So
Yeah, it's a first draft. Yes.
Go ahead.
What is the actual length and width of the proposal of the county boardroom, since it appears to be expanding further that way?
What are the actual dimensions?
Yes, what are the dimensions of that?
Well, they planned, as I understand it, takes out all the bathrooms and
Yeah.
makes that gallery space.
So I was just curious, do you have a ballpark figure as to what that comes to?
I'd have to count ceiling tile. Offhand, I don't know. Each one's 2 feet. Pardon?
We'd have to get that from the hallway. If you wanted, I will count it out for you.
Where
Well,
would the
reason I
closest
bring it up
bathroom
is
be?
because there is the bonus room that was included in design modifications to the new facility on the second floor. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
What we call the Dakota room?
The Dakota room?
Yes.
Decora.
Decor room. Decor room, yeah, decor room.
And I'm wondering what the square footage of that is.
Similar, it's similar.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Just curious.
Yeah,
wanted to see.
we'll get to that. So,
23 by 16 tiles.
16 this way?
Yeah.
16 and then 23 that way.
Okay, it's 32 feet this way,
And
and maybe
46 the other.
32, maybe 50 feet this way.
Pretty
From this
close.
wall
Pretty close, yeah.
to where that would be, something in that range. So let's go to the next floor. How do we get that to appear here? Okay, this is the first floor. Again, north is up. I don't know if there's a way to illustrate. Okay, you can see on the screen the arrow. I don't know if those of you who are seeing from home, if you can see the arrow. But the new building is going to be the arrow to the left. This is all new building. Of course, it goes way beyond the screen. And then the existing building is the horseshoe that is to the east and to the south. You'll recall from other discussions, there's the single main entrance that goes into the building with a control point. We point out in all these drawings in yellow where there are conference spaces. This first space here is the Sheriff's Emergency Operations Center / training room, but it will have public access off the public lobby, so it could be used schedule-wise for meetings. Then we get into let me point out a few other things. So people coming into the building to get to other floors will have a couple options. There will be a stairwell at the end of the lobby space, which is open and visible, that will take staff and visitors, the public, up to the second floor. There's also a new elevator that's in close proximity to that will also allow people to get to the second floor. I should remind you that the current boardroom is under the pink color, if you will, and to get to that from this floor, you'd have to come through the hallway to the present elevator and stair to get down to that room. What this plan is suggesting, and it supports some of the things that Kurt had mentioned, that when we talked with the department heads, there are some departments that, because of their clientele, need to be as reasonably close to the front door as possible. ADRC is one of those, where we've got clientele who are mobility challenged, and the ability for them to get from their parking to ADRC in some relatively short distance is a goal that we would like to achieve. And so in that regard, that's why we put the ADRC where it is. I lost my image. In this location. It would be the closest spot to the front door. I should point out also to the left of that are the new bathrooms that are here on the first floor, as well as you'll see them on the second floor. So I'll just continue to work around the plan. Veteran Services, clientele in some cases can be similar to ADRC, so we brought them closer to the front door as well. You'll see Human Services is a very large department and is essentially taking over everything that you see that is in yellow on the plan. Some of the space is being reused, but a lot of it's going to be remodeled. So they're taking up both sides of the hallway and a large portion of the first floor. Then in where the sheriff and sheriff's and jail area is, Register of Deeds would remain where they are. We had some conversations about moving them to a different location, but they want to keep their proximity to their records. And so they represent a large chunk of space, and we're going to leave them where they are. The sheriff's office is going to become land management. That's this area here. They do a lot of work out in the field. There's some garages that are here. They bring a lot of dirt and mud and other things into the building, and so we want to reuse these garage areas. Some of them for Jeremy, some of them one of them for the health department, and then land management would have access to one of them as well. So that's why land management is in this area. And we're trying to, in this particular case, essentially trying to move them into space without a lot of remodeling. So that's one of the goals in that part. So that is the first floor. And then we get up to the second floor. You'll see again that, just for orientation, where the arrow is, to the left of that is the new building.
The wish is father to the deed, something?
That's the new building, and then the existing building is to the right. Again, I point out on the second floor, here's that stairwell that will come up to the second floor, and then the elevator, and then the bathrooms, again, brand new. This is that room that was mentioned a moment ago. I guess finally labeled the Decor Room. That can be up for discussion as to what you want to name it, but it is a found space in the plan, and wasn't originally in the space program, but it works for a very useful conference room. And you'll see that, again, we put together a number of options for how that room might be laid out space-wise, and you'll see both some classroom arrangements as well as the U-shape arrangement that was just mentioned a moment ago. And that room is roughly the same size as this room down here with the expansion out into the bathroom area. This room will not have, the decor room will not have any columns in the middle of the room. We can work our way around the columns. So then let's just walk through the rest of this plan. So in the existing building, we're bundling together some departments that have a lot of relationships with each other. So that includes the county clerk and the treasurer. This diagram suggests, trying to get my arrow there, that they would share a common waiting area right here. And then the clerk would be on one side, the treasurer would be on the other. We also have identified an office for the county board chair to be in this location as well. That's a topic of discussion. Across the hallway, again, as labeled in yellow, these would be conference rooms. So we're showing the possibility of it being organized into 3 different rooms. You can see the numbers, the 2 for seating for 8, 1 for 14. There could be other arrangements with this area, but we're saying that could be well used as conference space. Then moving into the rest of the plan, the blue is Health Department. Again, that's the second largest department within the county. So you can see the space that they're taking. On the other side of the hallway is Land Records. You'll see that. The green is Human Resources Corporation Council. And we've outlined some space. Again, this a topic for conversation. We've provided space for a future county administrator and administrative support. So the administrator would have a private office. The administrative support would have a cubicle, similar to the other support staff that are in that area. So that's a discussion. Thinking, well, at least in listening to conversations, we hear that this has been a topic that's been on the board's mind, I guess, for a few years at least. We know that the schedule for construction of this project could be a number of years off. So we're not suggesting or necessarily encouraging that there be a county administrator. We just want to know that if that's a possibility, we want to be sure that we're providing space in this plan when and if that were to ever occur. I mean, it's available. It could be used for that or for other functions. Then finishing up the rest of the plan, UW Extension is the red box. You'll see that. That is a portion of the sheriff's area. One of the things we like about this is that there's a kitchen in the upper right-hand corner that they can use without a lot of remodeling. So UW Extension takes that. And then where the district attorney is and the law library, that would be information technology. And then we found also some space where we could have another conference room here in yellow. I should note on the question of conference rooms, many of the departments would like to have their own dedicated conference space, but we know that we've filled the entire building essentially, with the exception of the jail area where all the cells are. And the conversations we've had with them says we don't have the space to provide an individual conference room for every department, but if we can create conference rooms that can be shared by the departments, that on an as-needed basis, scheduling it, that their needs can be met that way. And so you'll see that throughout these plans, there are lots of yellow boxes that can serve as conference space for various purposes and reasons. So let's open it up to conversation. Thoughts? So it's a first draft.
Yeah, John, on that first floor plan, you got exit-only vestibule going out to the north off the main entrance, but you've got several other exits between ADRC, Human Services, down by Land Management, Register of Deeds. Are these just exits only, or are they going to be entrance and exits?
Those are exits only.
Okay.
Alarmed, right?
Alarmed, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This has been a topic, of conversation, that we're pretty strong about the need to have a single entrance to this building, as you have now. And that's going to be off the main lobby. That will be where people come in and out. I think some of the discussions have been that we would allow, maybe try to go back to a plan. If I can find this. Oops. Going the wrong way. Trying to get that little dialog box.
Very good.
Thank you. One more. Here. So this is the first floor. This being that main entrance point. And then what we've discussed is that this doorway here, which is one of the required exits for the stair, would allow people to go out that door, but not allow them to come back in that door.
Okay.
Is there any way, like in land use there from the garage, can they get into the?
Yeah, you found it. Yes, we've talked at length about that, and we're gonna have to go back to that plan, if I can. We're gonna have to create a access point, a controlled access point from the garage into the land management, yes. Exactly correct.
Our badge system would be able to.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Okay. John, this means John Kane. So am I correct in seeing that the space you designated as the Cora Center, that could be a county boardroom?
Yes.
So I hope the architects consider that. Could certainly use some backup from the rest of the board members about this.
That's on the second floor you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Right.
The Decor Room would be a very attractive county boardroom.
I mean, all you could do is reverse and make the space in the basement, make this space a conference center that's used occasionally and available to the various department heads.
I guess the comment that I would make to that is that, and we would want to talk to the groups about how that room is scheduled, and I think that the board room could meet in there. What we've done with other counties is that actually becomes a room that can have multiple options, and then it's a scheduling component that could be tied into that. I've got another brainstorm that just popped up in my head that I'll bring up
Go for it.
as well. But if you look back to the first floor of the basement plan, I'm sorry, go to the first floor plan, because that's how I'm going to be able to explain it to you. If you look at this area right here where the ADRC is in pink, that's where the county boardroom sits right now. And I'm sorry, I didn't think of this before, John, but this portion right here that's hatched, where you see the bathrooms that are on that floor, that's where our addition begins. And because of the elevation of where the footing line is, we already are going to have deep foundations in that portion of the building. I would need to run the numbers on it, but there could be a potential where just that portion becomes a basement of our addition. And then where you see the door right there could actually get us into some bathrooms that would be there. And maybe the space that's where we call elevator lobby, this would all be down on the lower level, could be an extension or a portion of the TV space. And then your county boardroom could become a bigger component of that with the bathrooms to it.
Are you thinking of taking the elevator then down to the basement?
Kind of what I'm thinking.
So
It
this
just
county
came.
boardroom would stay here?
Yeah. It just came to me, okay? So, this is the sort of brainstorming we do.
This happens every day. You guys know that.
Supervisor Zeglin, clearly, his top priority is getting that room
Yep.
out of the basement, and I would happen to agree with him on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
That's annoying. The
The,
sightlines suck.
If we ever get back to where we were in our U-shaped thing, which I'm hoping we will one day, because I'm in total agreement with.
I think all the board members would be. I need to hear from you guys, but this is ridiculous. This is not the way to have discussions, and the board has to be able to operate. You have to be able to see one another, you have to be able to hear one another. I mean, even, I don't know if Whitehall City Council is any different, you sit around a table, and that's how people talk things over. And you can't have people talking behind your backs, constantly turning around and expect to get anything done. So I think really, Dan, I would say a higher priority than the basement is the seating arrangement, so that's a circular or
Correct.
horseshoe. And then a space that does not have pillars in it, and it is close to the bathroom, but I don't see how you can do that here in the basement.
Well, I'll agree to disagree with you on the priorities, because for years, you've seen public interest in county government change. We need to make ourselves more accessible, and I believe that putting our meeting room in a spot that's more accessible is the first step to doing that. Granted, we've helped the public they don't have to get up out of their easy chairs and come down here to participate in a meeting. They can do it online now. And that doesn't necessarily allow them to participate, but it gives them information. I just think not only do we have a responsibility to make ourselves more accessible, we have a responsibility for space so that people can attend if they want to attend. This is really problematic when it comes to having the public come in here and participate in the government that invests their tax money.
I think one of the.
I'm not gonna, okay, so I'm not gonna argue with Dan about priorities. They're both high priorities. And I do want to thank you for putting in gallery space. That's also apropos, because there is no gallery, there is no room for people here. And that is, again, that discourages people from coming. It detracts from the transparency, it detracts from the accountability. There should be room for the public.
I guess I will say from a budget perspective, if the Decor Room works, when we don't have to do any demolition of these bathrooms down here, and this becomes a resource that could still be used for electronic, what's the word I'm looking for? Virtual meetings for other components that would be tied to that. I mean, though it's one of those areas where we want to maximize the space in this old building that we are doing limited amount of work. And if the Decor Room can serve multiple purposes for county board meetings and then additional meetings, it'd be a solution that would be cost effective. Jim?
As far as the basement and this room goes, if the board moves to the second floor bonus room, I think the director for WTCO might have some ideas about this space before we get too excited. What question regarding the Decor Room, those closets, dimensions and purpose that are marked on there?
Yes.
I can say one of them was going to be meant for storage of like tables and stuff, if you wanted to move the tables that were originally thought to be on wheels, you could move them and store them in one of them, and the other one could possibly be to hold any electronic equipment that's going to be used in that room. They just put them on because there was storage there. There was room to add them.
I want to point out that if we do remodel to create meeting spaces in the lower level south wing, and the second floor, 8, 14, 8, and 8, the 4 conference rooms up there, I think there's going to be enough multi-function conference rooms that we could have a single-purpose county boardroom in the Decora space. And then probably consider some of the things that Tim is speaking to, putting in permanent desks that seat the county board members. They have power available to their desks so they can plug their devices in. They have their microphone, they have everything they need. And then you're not trying to turn it into a multi-purpose rolling tables in and moving them around.
I think the thing we need to keep in mind is that space there was a purpose for the space that we were going to use for jury assembly and those sorts of things. So it does need to be multi-purpose to a sense.
Multi-purpose.
And there's ways that can be achieved. We've done it at counties, multiple counties, where typically you guys meet in the evening, so there's ways that can be done. And then jury assembly isn't every day, but it has the ability to function as that. So.
Okay. As far as the closets then go, would one of them be available for the TV studio to locate their equipment so they can work from that space whenever there's a meeting, so they don't have to run between floors? And is that a possibility?
I think that would be something we would look at in the next level of design here, if the direction is that we would like to look at that as a boardroom, as a multi-purpose option.
And then the last question, would that room be having windows to the outside courtyard?
But we had not planned on having any windows. And
we don't want to distract the board members with windows, though.
I've got some. I'll show you what the boardroom would look like in a minute. We have some perspectives of that room that I'll share with you.
And then, could I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
There's a break room on the second floor and a break room on the first floor. One of the things in my previous employer, they had a single break room for the whole main facility, and that added to worker cohesion, because every time there was a birthday or a Easter ham feed, everybody had one spot to all go to, and it was a large enough space that you could fit 20, 25 people in there. So having 2 separate break rooms keeps us all isolated and siloed from each other. Wondering if there'd be a possibility to add a little more space to either one of those and remove the other one.
The break room spaces that we have, I would describe as being found spaces, or spaces that are simply just left over after everybody else space needs are met. I would not want to compromise the department space needs. I think that's where you have rooms like this, which that you can set up for a birthday party or something like that. That would be my opinion on that. You know, back to the decor room, as this is new construction, we can lengthen the room north-south on the plan. We can make more out of the closets if we need to. Ashley's absolutely right. We want there to be a room that we can store furniture, tables, or chairs that are not being used at that point in time. I'm sure you've gone to conference rooms and places like that where there's a whole bunch of furniture that's sitting over in the corner. That's what I'm trying to avoid. You know, you like to be able to go into a room and that it look right, complete for whatever purpose it's serving that particular day, as a boardroom or as a conference room or whatever, training room.
John, I have one more question.
Please.
In the color key, you have a color for maintenance, kind of an orange color, but I don't see any orange on the plans. Are they in the?
I'm going wherever if somebody don't. I'm on the bottom.
I'm on your side, Jeremy.
I get you, but my plan is to take over a portion of the jail. Because my shed will be going away, so I'll be taking over part of the garage that the sheriff currently has to facilitate moving stuff from there to there. And then I'm looking at using up some of the extra jail space. What I had originally intended to use is now where extension is going, but because of where extension wanted that kitchen. I appreciate you looking out.
Well, I do, you know, I don't want, you know, it looks like you're gonna put you in a tent in the parking lot or
That's
something.
about-
I mean, I
Snow
okay.
fence around the dumpster, that's.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions or comments?
This is Barb. I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, on the second floor plan, our conference room 8, 14, and 8, are the walls separating them, solid walls, or are they walls where that you could turn them all into one conference room, you know, that kind of slide back and forth?
They're solid walls.
Thank you.
One more comment, John.
Yeah.
I do also, I don't want to beat up on you guys too much.
We can take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been beaten up worse than that.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a compliment. Thank you for putting in that space for a future county administrator. Yes, this has been a topic of debate for quite a few years, and recently was defeated by the board. But one of the more feeble arguments against the county administrator is, well, where would you put this person? Well, at least now we have a place to put this person. But there's still a lot of other things that have to be solved. But thanks for thinking about it.
I guess the one thing, and I just want to, and again, this is a compliment to Venture and all of the department heads, because, again, it was a work that everybody came in with requests, and they identified the need, but then they also understood what was in the best interest as the adjacencies and the efficiency of the flow. And at the end of the process, I was extremely pleased with what you're seeing. Now, I will tell you that the next hurdle that we need to discuss is cost, because there's a portion of the building where we're going to absolutely gut it. There's portions of it where the rooms don't work, where we're going to go in and we're going to take out all the walls. You're going to see concrete on the floor, you're going to see bar joist up above, and we're going to start from scratch. And then there's other portions of the project where we can go in and reuse a good portion of the space. The human services portion, majority of those offices are being reused, meaning that we're going to put new carpet, we're going to put new ceilings in, we're going to put new paint in there, so it's going to look as though you're coming into a new space. You won't have this old carpet, but the challenge is that as we identify the cost, we need to align it with the budget that we've established. And when we saw the square footage. I've done some preliminary numbers with our estimating team in it, and the budget will be tight. So we're going to have to make budget decisions as we enter into the next phase of design. This is the first phase of design, and then we get into the next phase of design, just like we're doing with the Justice Center, and budget is definitely going to play a role in that. Again, I think we've maximized what we can reuse, and that goes back to John and Elizabeth. They've done a tremendous job. Elizabeth did a lot of work behind the scenes that made that work, and I thank them for that. But we do need to navigate through the cost and decisions as we move forward through the next phase of design. So,
I think there's a compliment to give to the department heads as well.
Yep.
I'm not going to suggest that when we had our first meetings with the department heads that they came in with guns a-blazing, but I know that there were some that were particularly concerned that their needs were not going to be met. And I think it's definitely a compliment to Elizabeth and her tenacity and her hard work at working with them individually to come up with a plan that I think they find quite workable. So when we came back through the conversation, the question was asked, are we meeting your needs? And I think generally speaking, they all said yes, I believe. I mean, some of you, Paul, or others, you participated in some of those discussions. Is there any sense from any of the departments that they were not heard, or that they're, and is there any grumbling? Let me ask it that way.
There was only that one that I talked to you about, and you've remedied it here on first floor.
Okay. Yeah.
The health department is thrilled.
Is what?
Thrilled. They're quadrupling their space. They should be thrilled.
Can I mention one more thing too? Because when I talked to John about the county boardroom staying down here and the walls being gone with the bathrooms, I asked him about the new courtrooms, what was going to happen with the benches that are in the old courtrooms, and he said they're gone. And I said, couldn't they be used for the gallery? And he worked that in for downstairs, and I'm just wondering, will that work upstairs?
Tough to move them around.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. Just turn them up like this and just roll them into a closet.
I think it comes down to whether it truly becomes multi-purpose or not.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was one of the questions I had
The
for
flexibility of
Ashley.
the furniture, so.
How many people sit in jury pool room?
I think they've had up to
Quite a few.
at least 80 to 100, I was going to say.
So if you had pews, and people sat in the seats that are designated for county board members, would that bother anybody? I mean, if they're having to sit and look at each other, is that such a big deal?
You'd have to put more chairs in there somewhere. And maybe there'll be chairs in the closets that can be brought out, huh? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think the furniture discussion of what we put in that decor space is definitely a topic, but I don't think it'll drive.
It's not an
where it's going.
insurmountable challenge.
It's
I
a
don't
small,
be able to
it's a
figure
very
something
small
out.
piece,
I
yeah.
don't think we're there yet either.
No.
You may want to consider one of the storage rooms or conference rooms that you have around the corner, the 814 and 8, as a storage room rather than a conference room.
Oof. Really hate using space for storage.
Well, as Kurt pointed out, I think the next step is to put a budget to this. Yeah.
So in general, I know that this was a presentation that we were waiting for, and we would look for action, I guess, from this committee, meaning the property committee, and I guess that's something we can talk about in regards to approval. The Building Oversight Committee is important, it's been essential, but for approval of some of these decisions, the elected officials are the ones that are responsible for that. So as we move forward, we're going to see the property committee become that body that makes some of these decisions, and then whether they decide to take this to the full board for layout, I guess will be determined by that. But what we would need is an approval, not that you're approving exactly where every one of those walls are going to go, because they're probably going to move here or there, but the overall location of the departments and this direction is what we would need some direction on. Or if we say, hey, this just is not going to work, and we've heard that from the county board discussion and where that room may be, and we'll take that into consideration. But we would want to see some sort of decision made on kind of the layout, so.
And you would like that today?
It would be nice if we could, yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions, or do you want to take action on it?
I just have one comment. Just Ashley had mentioned it when we were talking here, but if you were to use the Decor Room as the county boardroom, would we have to consider restricting access to the public hallway of the court suite then?
Yep. We would want to look at what that, right when you come into clerk of courts, we may have to look at that something, a barrier is there, so you're going into that room and then out. We would want to figure out what that looks like. Yeah. Yeah.
You would shut the other doors so they can't access the rest of the building.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we would need to address the security so people aren't traveling. That's kind of been one of the main focuses, is that those meetings are after hours, and we don't want people throughout the entire campus. So coming out of here, if that's the direction that would be the county boardroom, we're gonna have to do some exercises and what do we do with separations to the balance of the campus, so.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions? What be the feeling of the property committee then?
Do we actually need a motion to move forward with this? Is that what you want from us?
Yes.
I don't know that it's an official motion. We just need approval that this is where we're heading, because what we don't want to do is jump into the next phase of design and that we're having to start from scratch again.
It looks great for me as one member.
So is that a?
So you're making a motion to go ahead?
We're not gonna lock ourselves into anything.
No.
We can still amend things as the discussion would dictate.
And you have not met with all the department heads together either, so they can see the whole picture?
They have not seen the whole thing together until
Okay.
today.
So we know there's
The
probably going to be
venture's
some
still been working.
conversations.
Thanks a lot, Kurt.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Is this building oversight?
No, this is property committee.
Okay.
Oh, Dan's taking that, so.
I am not,
That's what I was just asking, who's taking it?
well, I haven't been
Is
in the
Rick
past
on?
either.
I think Brittany may.
what the motion was
I
again?
think Brittany may.
The
be on.
motion is to go ahead with the plan that's been presented with possible
With
changes to
possible
it.
changes, yeah.
Just to give them the go-ahead.
Just to give the go-ahead, yes.
Yep.
And like he said, the biggest thing is gonna be financial yet too. They've got everything on here, but if that's way over the budget, they have to make changes without anybody saying anything.
I guess so that we can give you a little comfort level that you're not signing off on the end design is, are you okay with the location of the departments? Because the next level of design will really start to hone in on walls and finishes and all those sorts of things. So where the departments are outside of the location of the boardroom, and maybe you want it in there that the boardroom would go to the potentially Decora space, that would give our team some direction to say, we need to figure out the boardroom if it works in the Decor Room so that it also works with the court system and security and all of that. That would be the direction we'd need. Fair, John?
Other than the boardroom, I don't think I've heard anything today.
Yeah.
What Kurt just spoke, I don't want this to happen down here,
Okay.
for sure.
Doc, would you amend your motion to say that the motion would be to tentatively approve the existing floor plan, but include a removal or a change in the location of the county boardroom to a site that the architects can best determine, given the existing space. But I'd like to see something, before I make a second or vote, I'd like to see something that says we are going to consider moving the boardroom.
I
out of the
think
basement.
just remove the lower level floor plan would be a good way to state it, right?
No,
It'll still be here.
Or remove the plan for it with
Kurt,
the,
I think we just move forward with the idea that the Decor Room becomes the county boardroom.
Yep.
Let's just do that, because
Is
then that gives us direction.
That's feasible.
It's feasible. We just need to work through the security of after hours as well as what works in regards to the multi-purpose piece. But I think it's feasible.
Okay, so,
Chuck, do you mind if I chime in?
go ahead.
This is Rick Niemeyer. I don't know that a motion is necessary. I think giving direction to the team as to what you want to see happen, which I think has already happened, I think that is sufficient from a purpose of moving forward. I think it's been made pretty clear as to some things that they need to redo, and they're willing to take a look at it. So I don't know that formal motion is necessary to do that.
If the architects and the consulting firm are comfortable with simply direction, that's what Rick is saying.
So do all the property member committees agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that as a direction.
Okay, so then, is that, Rick, so we can just all agree, and we don't need to make a motion then?
Correct, I would agree with that, yes.
Okay, I'm in favor, the rest of the
That's
property
fine with me,
committee?
and
Okay, so you
take
have
my
the
motion
blessings
back.
of the property committee to continue.
Sounds good.
I'm assuming that's fine, but Building Oversight Committee?
Yeah.
Building
yeah,
Oversight?
we are.
I would agree. I just
Fine,
want
okay.
to comment, and I think somebody, or a couple maybe touched on it, but to try to limit the use of that Decor Room to the county board meeting only and try to use another room for all these committee meetings that we're doing would make that, I think, a lot more appealing to the courts as well, because they, like I said, a jury assembly room, I think, was kind of important to them, so to make sure that that piece is still there, and just use it only as a county board room, and try to come up with a way to do these committee meetings like this in a
The
different
only
room.
problem is we may have trouble with the televising capabilities, because
Yeah,
we don't have all those, they need all this equipment, and I don't think we want the custodians moving the equipment back and forth.
Well, I understand that there's gonna be issues like that, but just think of the number of meetings that go on in this room, and if that's the case, it'll never be used as a jury assembly room, so.
But I think we still want to broadcast the meetings. I think the public in general has been very favorable of seeing the committee meetings.
Right.
I think we have to meet with the TV staff and discuss with them, if the core room becomes the boardroom, then what are their needs?
Yeah.
I think that's how
Okay.
we have to address it, short of taking their whole department and moving it up on the second floor, which that'd be really difficult to do.
No, I agree with what the sheriff stated, and we'll use that as a priority here as we move
Okay.
forward.
There is no space in the new Justice Center for the jury room you're talking about?
That is in the new Justice Center. That was the space in the new building created for that purpose.
Oh, this is actually in the new building part?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna have another plan in a minute that might help clarify that.
Okay. What's next on our agenda then? Do you have anything else?
Well,
do it.
there's more to what we wanted to update you on this morning, but
Okay.
that on your agenda is item number 11. So if we've just finished item number 6,
Go ahead, jump
if you
to it.
have 7, 8, 9, and 10, if there's anything that you want and need to discuss.
I can jump on, I can go to schedule if that works. Let's do that. And then John's got some stuff he wants to wrap up with. So, there's some things in the project schedule that I want to make you aware of, and I'm going to probably talk about 7, 8, and 9. Can we talk about them all together?
Go ahead.
Right. So I want to bring the Building Oversight Committee up to speed. Met with property this morning. We did receive 4 bids for the demolition of the old school. And we have one low bidder that we're going to qualify. And if they are a qualified bidder, we'll move forward with a contract. Demolition will begin here later in the month. We are targeting to have that old school down by the end of April. There is some asbestos abatement that needs to be done. That'll be taken next week. It's going to all be coordinated between those vendors with the targeted completion to have that building taken down by the end of April. You're going to see fence that's going to go up on that site over there to be able to deal with the safety and security. You'll see some job trailers that will roll into there, so this is gonna start to look like a construction site in the very near future. The component that has come up recently with the project schedule, like within the last couple of days, that I want to make everyone aware of, is that Venture has finished the design development phase of the project, and we have put it out to vendors from a pricing perspective. And one of the things that we were doing with the structure of the building was to identify reducing the amount of structural steel that's in the building because of the market that's in the steel industry right now, where the prices are going up. And a majority of the housing unit for the jail and portions of jail administration were intended to be precast wall panels. When we got it out to our vendors for pricing, they had shared with us that what happened in the market is because many people are transitioning over to precast structure versus steel. Because of that market, they are just flooded with work, and the likelihood of them being able to bid and actually provide the product this calendar year would be slim. So what that did to us is we had to step back and say, what are we going to do with that portion of the building that is precast? Now, we can still have precast columns, beams, and floor plank. It's the wall panels that were the issue. And we can't have a long lead time item like that because that's a critical path item in our construction. So when I found out about that, reached out to Venture. We quickly navigated from the precast wall panels to CMU, which is concrete block and brick veneer. And from a cost perspective, it's going to be very close to the cost that we've carried. The reason that we were going with precast was more of a sequence of how we construct the housing unit. So I don't want to bore you with the details, but when you deal with the mezzanine and how we build it, we were looking at the precast as being a way to help with sequencing. Because the markets aren't allowing us to do that, we have to go back to CMU. We've built multiple of them in that configuration, so it's not that you're getting any different of a structure from what is done in other locations. But however, what it does is it does cause Venture to have to go back and revise some of their footing and foundation design in regards to sizing, in regards to connection to our walls. So it's going to delay our bid pack 1 by about 2 weeks. We were targeting to have that bid pack 1 out by the end of April. We're going to probably see that bid pack 1 come out mid-May to be able to get out to vendors. But by the time we get our demo done and get everything cleaned up, it's a much better decision with our critical path than saying we were going to bid it with precast and see that we have a 5, 6, 7 month delay. So it's probably more detail than you want to know, but that's really impacting our project schedule. The balance of the bid packages that we're talking about will not be impacted. We're still looking at end of June for the bid pack 2, but it will affect our bid pack 1. So anything to add to that, Corey? I just wanted to bring that up to the team.
No, I think that sums it
on
up.
the call?
Okay.
I think that sums it up.
Okay.
Corey.
The groundbreaking, I did meet with exec finance, was that Monday, Paul? And we talked a little bit about the groundbreaking. What the groundbreaking equates to is that we're going to have some loose dirt, we're going to have some hard hats, and we're going to have some gold shovels. And it's really a ceremony to tell the community we're getting going. We talked about on Monday potentially doing it at the end of the month because we wanted to have that bid pack out here at the same time. And we could still do it at the end of the month. We do have, because of this change in our bid pack 1, we would have a week or 2 to play with. But I would like it to be on the county board's agenda for the 20th to pick a day when we would want to do that groundbreaking. We will facilitate the coordination of those efforts and get everything that we need here, the dirt, the shovels, the hard hats. We just need all you there with your smiling faces and kind of an idea of who you want to invite to that to be able to have that groundbreaking ceremony.
So we need to inform the sheriff's department so we can set up barriers in case we have.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Security efforts.
Security.
Yeah. One of the things that you will have though is you're already going to have a fence up there. You're going to have a hole that's there because the building will be there. So it'll look like you broke ground. Technically, you have not. You're just preparing the site for you to break ground. But it's just a ceremony to be able to kick off the project. So I'd like to have that a topic for the county board here on the 20th of April. Any questions on those 3 before I jump into the Park Street agreement?
No. Go to Park Street agreement.
Okay. I did, again, shared this briefly with property, but we have started some discussion and some documents between the county and the city. There is a draft agreement that has been edited a couple of times between the county and the city. And what it ultimately reads is the utility agreement from relocating utilities from Park Street into the adjacent streets, whose responsibility that is, what that looks like at the end of the process, who maintains it, who's paying for everything, how are we inspecting it, and like I shared with the property committee, it's been very good to work with the city, to work with their engineers, and we're targeting to have that before the county board on April 20th to take action on that agreement, and then that would go back to the city for their approval. There is a time frame that would need to be before we could take action for the public to weigh in on that decision to close Park Street. But for the most part, things have been moving along smoothly, and I want to thank the city for their cooperation in making that happen. So.
Back to you, John.
Okay. See if we can get that up on the screen.
How do you get it to the other screen?
Technically
I think the
challenged.
TV might have to pick that up.
Oh.
I think they're all in it. They're looking over the floor plans.
I'll go grab them.
Yeah, they're distracted. So what I wanted to do in the remaining minutes, just to give you an update on where we are with the project. Kurt mentioned a minute ago that we are transitioning from a phase called design development into our final construction documents. It's a pretty significant milestone at that point, where most, if not all, the major decisions about the building and its constructability have been made, and now we're really kind of deal with all of the details in building the building. Perfect. So what I have in front of you is I want to just walk you through a couple of the sheets in what we call the design development plan. They will be too small for you to be able to read, but I can hopefully it'll give you a flavor for where we're at. This is the cover sheet for that document, and now I got a dialog box in the middle of the screen. It's trying to catch up to me. Okay. This is the cover sheet for the design development set of drawings, and if I brought a whole set in to show you, it would basically be about 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. It's everything from the architectural to mechanical, structural, plumbing, etc. It's a large document. I asked the team this morning how many people are working on the project right now by discipline, and we've got close to 25 different people, both in Milwaukee and Madison, that are working on this project almost every single day. I mean, that's the size of your project and the effort that's being made, and that does not include the people from the Samuels Group who are also putting together their estimates. So this is a major project for all of us, and if we haven't continued to thank you for hiring us, I'll say it again. Thank you very much. It's a big deal for our firm. It's the biggest project we're doing right now, and we've got our best people on that. So John, enough of that bullshit. Let's just keep going. That's why I get the big bucks. Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, see, even the screen says I'm crap. It will work. Come on. Oh my God. Okay. This is the first floor. Again, it's intentionally small so you can't see all the details. But again, just, God, where's that arrow? I'm old school. This is the existing building. This is the entrance we talked about, the main entrance. This is all sheriff's office here. There'll be a main entrance for the sheriff reception. Here's that training room I spoke of. 911 is up here. There's mechanical spaces, other things. There's a garage for the sheriff. This is all the sheriff or the jail support area. This is the Sally Port, the booking area, medical, etc., visitation. There'll be that second entrance to this portion of the building for the jail only. This is the housing pod. I apologize to those who are watching from home. This will be the second floor. Again, I apologize. You probably can't hear me. Here's the decor room as I spoke about. This is all quartz. There's a large waiting area here for guests and visitors related to the quartz. I think after our meeting, we should talk about that security point. I think there are a couple possibilities. It might be here. Maybe it's right here. So let's give some thought to that. So this is all second floor, and then this is the pod for the jail. The second level. Those are kind of overviews. This is the first floor in more detail. The lobby space to the left. I won't go into the details. I think we've seen this before. If you have questions as I'm going along. Here's that second floor. We've kind of seen this already. Here's that decor room that I spoke of. Oh, come on. This is maybe more of a detail of the second floor. We've got 3 courtrooms, as you'll recall. That decor room is right here. There's a main hallway that runs here. The child support, district attorney are those departments that face south. This is a hearing room, a non-jury courtroom. These are the 2 jury courtrooms with jury deliberation rooms. This is where the offenders come in the middle and come into the courtroom, so there's no crossing of the public and the inmates. The judges and their support staff are back here, again, separate from the public. This is the clerk of court area, so they have access to all of this without, again, going out into the public area, so it functions very well. And security is a major concern in a facility like this. I should point out, because I'll have some perspectives of the courtrooms, this is a cross-section through the courtroom. We're going to bring natural light in from the north, so the hallway that I mentioned before was right here. There are conference rooms that are off the hallway. This is the courtroom itself. The gallery area is to the back. And then we're going to come up with a higher ceiling and bring natural light in behind the judge, and this will be all north-facing. As we talk to our judges across the state, security is important. We wouldn't necessarily put windows in a courtroom looking out on the street. They would like to have natural light as much as possible, and I think we've accomplished that with those windows. More details of the housing pods. It's a 2-level design. The control center is in the middle, and then it's divided into smaller little pieces, both cell beds and dorm beds. Those are the 2 floors of that. And then just a drawing difficult to read, I apologize. This is a cross-section through the housing pod. This is the officer's control center. It's enclosed, it's raised. This would be the floor. It's raised, and the officer can see into both the first level and the upper level. The cells are around the perimeter, so they have excellent lines of sight into all the day room spaces. That's part of the concept of a modular design, and the reasons why we're moving away from the type of design that we have upstairs. So what I would like to do now is just walk you through the building a little bit. These are renderings of portions of the new building, and I'll walk you through them and explain them to you briefly. This is what you will see when you come into the main entrance. It's a 2-story space. You'll see that towards the back will be the control center where you go through with an officer. There are windows to the right, both on the upper level and the lower level. This will look into the courtyard that's out here in front of us. That decor room that I spoke of is going to be behind this mural. We're thinking of a glass wall that has an acrylic image that would be put on it, so you can see in and out, but that the screening would actually conceal some of the view. We've done this in some of our other projects. It's an opportunity to bring natural light into that room, and you can see out of it, but you can't exactly see what's going on in the room. And as I mentioned, the control point is towards the back. We think that this lobby space is a place, just as you have now in your hallways where you display the history of Trempealeau County, that you can do that on the walls. There may be displays as suggested in these renderings of some some artifacts or something like that. So these are all just ideas that we're throwing out and sharing with you. Certainly a lot of more work that continues to be done. There is an element of stone that's in this building. That east wall that you'll see, we like to use natural stone from the area. I think that's part of the driftless area concept. As you know, as you drive around, you see where roads and excavations have taken place, and you can see that stone. We like to mimic that, if you will, in the lobby space, because I think that's part of the history of the driftless area. This would be, I'm turning around and I'm looking back towards the main entrance. So the vestibule is what you see right here. So I've come in through these doors into that space. There's an opportunity for murals and history to put on the walls. Again, these are all placeholders, but we'd like to work with the county in developing some concepts for that. This is just another view of looking towards the control point that's in the back, maybe murals, etc., on the wall to the left. You'll see way in the background will be that stair that will take you up to the second floor. So when you actually come into the lobby space, you'll be able to see the stair to the back. This is what that stair will look like. It's open, it's monumental. We want to be able to make sure that people know where they're going, that they can see where they're headed. We've fondly put Quick Trip in the windows to the north, because that will be, that's the view. It is. Yeah, there you go. Be quiet, John. So outside that Decor Room is a waiting area for people awaiting to go to trial, or families, etc. And this is what that waiting area might look like. So actually, the Decor Room is going to be off to your left here. So I've come up the stair, and this is where I'm going to go to the courtrooms there. Off to the right over here will be the door to the clerk of court's office. So there's seating there. Here's another view looking at that. I've gone down to the corner and turned around. So that's a nice waiting area that we can have, so people can be waiting for court, but they're not necessarily crowded around the front door in front of the courtrooms, where they can create a lot of noise. And so this was a really nice suggestion that the staff had offered. A couple of views of that Decor Room, and maybe some of this will modify depending upon how we continue to talk with the TV people. The entrance to this room, as it's shown on the plan right now, would be here, and those closets are on the side. This might be the county board arrangement with seating. There's some high windows up here that can bring some, well, it just gives you a sense that the room is a little more open. This would be the display wall to the east. The outside would be to my right. And I think we've got another view of that looking from a different direction. Okay. That would be looking from the other corner, and there you can see this etched wall, this glass wall that's right here, surrounding seating arrangement.
John, in this,
Yes.
you have a rectangular arrangement for the tables, or is that a modified horseshoe? Or?
Well, I would say that's a U shape.
It's a U, okay.
Yeah. But I
That
think
would be ideal.
that
the
would be a
visual.
really nice boardroom.
Yeah, that would really be a nice boardroom.
It'd be a nice
I would
boardroom.
echo that.
You want to amend your vote?
No.
Affirm, yeah. No. I'd have to say our interior staff have done a really nice job on this project. They've worked with staff now for quite a while in a number of meetings. So let's keep walking, John. So this is the hallway leading down to the courtrooms. Couple views. You know, I think we're trying to continue the idea that you've already developed in this building, where you've got history on the walls, et cetera. I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for that. This would be an entrance into one of the courtrooms. And then there's some views of the courtroom itself. So there are those high windows up high behind the judge's bench. And the jury gallery is off to the right. So I'm Jury's to the right. I'm in the gallery behind. This is the well in front. All the various functionaries, the judge in the middle.
I see we have a female judge there. Are we replacing or?
Looking to the future, yeah.
That's a traveling judge. So little details that are going to start to develop in the plan. Video technology is a major topic in courtroom design, and so where those screens, et cetera, are, such as this screen right here, we'll begin to have conversations about that as a major issue in court proceedings. And then turning around and looking back towards the gallery to the back. And this would be this is the witness, I believe, is that right? Yeah, the back of the witness. So we just wanted to share those with you this morning. Are we going in the right direction?
Yes, can the property committee safely assume that the judge and sheriff have looked at this and are aware of everything, and have given your stamp of approval? Can you assure the property committee?
The sheriff can tell you that this has been scrutinized over and over and over again and changed, and we do have a document that we are happy with right now for the sheriff's department level.
And I can tell you, we've met extensively. I wouldn't say we've got a finished product for the courtrooms. I know that was the last, the one you just saw was the last one we just worked on. There's probably going to be a couple tweaks to it yet, but we are definitely making some good progress in getting closer. You know, and the other comment I would just make again about that Decor Room, you know, that was anticipated to be a jury assembly room, to use that room for staging juries, and also in consideration of future spacing if that were needed as well. And so I would just say, you know, if that's the plan or that's the way the direction is going to go, that's being used as a county boardroom, again, to be able to have that a multi-purpose room, or at a minimum have one other purpose than the board meeting, which is to have availability and use for jury assembly. That's going to be really important, and I think well, I'll just leave it there.
How many jury trials do you actually have in a year?
How many we have?
Yeah.
I would say a couple a year.
Couple, so it's not that it's going to be used very much then for jury assembly.
You know, and what I would say is that some of it is you just really don't know.
Okay.
And I know other counties that in our district that have a lot of them, and I think a lot of that's driven by the defense attorneys and the prosecutors and kind of how they work through things. You know, and so if that culture changes, you could end up having more, could less, but generally we have a couple a year. And so it isn't as like an everyday thing, but at the same time, you know, when we have, you know, additional 80 to 100 people coming in the courtroom or courthouse to be staged, and of course, again, if we have to do social distancing with that, we're going to need the space. And so I just want to just make that known.
In 10 years, the second judgeship too.
What's that?
In 10 years for the second judgeship too, if that.
Oh, yeah, if there's a second judge.
Pushing for jury trials.
You're right, and so, yeah, like I said, that's how many juries you have. It's sort of a culture thing of a number of different factors and variables. But yeah, if there's ultimately a second judge as well, that takes away that second courtroom to use for staging people as well. And so it is, yeah, it's future-minded, but also, you know, I would anticipate that the court system would need that room on occasion for that, but I can't predict the future really well to say how often that's going to be.
As of right now, it would be minimal, though.
What's that?
As of right now, it would be minimal.
Yes, I would say so.
Going back to these poles down here are load-bearing posts, right, Kurt?
They are, John, I think.
There is no way to get rid of them.
They are, John. We would want to do some exploration. I think there may be that those were added because of some loading that was on the upper floor, that because of some files that were in there. There's a potential that they could be removed. We would want to do some investigation into that, but something we'll dive into as we look at these options. So.
Is that everything?
Kurt,
Please.
I just have a question. Looking at your drawings, they all look absolutely gorgeous with a lot of glass. At what level of the floor plans do you start putting in like dorm rooms, to protect against tornadoes and stuff like that?
Is she asking me or John?
You.
She asked you.
Wonderful. Why do I get the difficult?
Barb, I think the approach that Venture looks at is that from the window perspective, they are tempered glazing that's there to say that our building is absolutely tornado-proof. I don't know that we've got a tornado-proof code, but they are designing to be able to deal with those situations. And your structure is definitely going to take the storms that, is going to take some residential homes down. Your building's going to stand. And there's actually a limited amount of glass in the building. They've done a good job of being able to minimize some of that. The lobby looks like it's a ton of glass, but the balance of the project is pretty modest in regards to the amount of glass that's there.
As you would see in any typical office building.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sheriff, I know you have expressed reluctance in the past to show floor plans and share plans with people. So I had not intended to bring handouts of this for everybody, but I have enough that I could give one to each of the board members, and maybe one for you and one for the judge. Do you mind if I do that? What's your thought? I don't want to.
My concern is sharing this digitally, creating any type of permanent record. So for committee members and whether it be the county board level committee members or the building oversight committee, I don't have any concerns with that. So
okay.
We just don't want to share it digitally where it can be rapidly disseminated.
So I think I've got enough for all the board members here, and then for you and for the judge.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay.
Are you wrapping this up? Or am I out of line if I ask another question regarding the county boardroom?
Yeah,
No,
you're
go
out of
ahead.
line. Thank you.
I was hopeful that this would come up because I really hate coming down here. This place gives me a headache. It's not a healthy place to be, and I think we need to move people above ground. It's always been the guiding principle since I arrived at the county, that people go above ground, storage goes below ground. So if we could figure out a way to get the county boardroom up above the main floor and get WTCO staff out of the basement, I think that would be a huge positive for the organization. And maybe some of the department heads could give up some of their storage. I mean, several departments are quadrupling their space, so we probably could get storage down here and tornado safety down here, and then move you guys up and get WTC out of there. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Wow.
I think they agree with you.
Sounds like you got fans.
I have also copies of the floor plans that I don't want to have to take back with me. I'll give them to you.
Does that take care of everything then, John?
I think so.
Okay, since that has concluded our agenda, does the building oversight want to come into the next property meeting again?
I guess I would just comment that, and I share this with the property committee and share with the building oversight committee, is that I would encourage us to continue to stay together until we break ground, because there's going to be decisions that are made and you'd be a part of it. It's been great having all of you a part of it. You're more than welcome to attend the property meetings moving forward, but once we get the project designed, I don't know that there's really a lot of meetings that we will have as a group once you start construction. and that we could still attend the property meetings moving forward. But, that's probably through June, at least to give you guys an idea on your schedule, that once we get those bid documents out, that we would continue to meet until then, unless you want to continue to have meetings and just talk about progress. That's what I would anticipate, so.
Because we have set the next property meeting for May 6th, so.
I know we have a set date.
I don't have it.
What is.
We'll figure it, we'll have to coordinate it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know I think there was discussion at the last one that we start the Oversight Committee meeting at 10 o'clock because you thought you might be done early.
Yeah.
There was a reason we couldn't start until 10:30 today, I think, with the Oversight Committee, but I think if we do continue to do it like this, we can bump, or consider moving it ahead in
10
case
o'clock.
your meeting gets done early,
Do you want to plan on that then?
Let's
Building
schedule it for
oversight?
May 6th, 10 again.
10 o'clock with the building oversight.
I know, I don't have it with
I-
us, but I know it's
I do.
already set.
The next Building Oversight Committee is scheduled for Thursday, May 13th, as a virtual meeting at 10:30.
Oh,
I'm not opposed to changing it to the proper committee.
I think it would come down to the judge's time, and we could meet as the property, as the building oversight, separate from the property too. It doesn't need to be, shared, so.
Okay. Anything else then? Okay, then I'll adjourn the property committee meeting at 12 o'clock.
Talk to Ashley.
and we'll leave May 13th then for, May 13th at 10 or 10:30.
10:30 is what it's scheduled right now.
Let's keep it the
Leave it that way?
13th so the judge can attend. It'd be
And I
good,
think
yep.
we have other things on that day already around that,
Yep.
so.
Yep, let's keep it
Paul?
there.
Then it won't be on your property meeting.
Okay.
Okay. I got it.
Is that 10 or 10:30?
10:30, I think we're scheduled for on May 13th for building oversight.
I thought.
Thank you.
Just that, I looked at that. Now I'm taking it off.
Okay. There being nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting at 12 o'clock.